This is Atomic Shinobi and today I am going to narrate first part of What If Kid Naruto Awakened Rinnegan after a brutal attack. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Sitting on a swing, a blond boy observed the other children playing joyfully together. However, his gaze quickly shifted to a girl who was standing behind a tree by herself. Her jet black eyes and long black hair made her the most beautiful girl he had ever seen in his life. She was staring at the other children. Grinning, the little blonde leapt to his feet and ran toward the girl. With a sly smile, he said, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, what's yours?" Her tone was icy as she asked, "Did I ask for your name?" "No, but it is good manners to give your before you ask for someone else's. Old man Hokage told me that," he continued with a grin. With icy eyes, she asked, "Shouldn't your parents have taught you that?" Her expression softened slightly as he said, "Well, I guess, but I don't have any," his smile disappearing. She said, "I'm sorry," quietly. "Don't be, it's not like you knew, right?" he said, his smile returning. "My name is Sareri Uchiha," she introduced herself. She blushed a little at the moniker, Sareri-chan, but Naruto didn't notice. "What are you doing over here all alone?" he asked. "I was waiting for my brother so he could show me a few jutsu, but it looks like he got caught up in work," she replied. "Well, I don't know any jutsu, but I could help you practice ones you already know, and who knows, maybe you could teach me something," he replied with a grin. They left for the training ground after she gave a nod. And for the first time, Naruto was genuinely grinning because he had finally met someone who didn't think he was contagious. Well, the first one didn't really count because she was strange and would always get flushed and faint when he simply said hello. However, since she was the heiress to the Hyuga clan, he was no longer permitted to speak to her. As the sun started to set, the two had stopped their training and sat down to talk. They discussed everything from their favorite foods to their future careers. She declared with pride, "Like my dad, I want to be the head of the police corps." With equal pride, he declared, "I want to be Hokage so people will have to respect me." Naruto pouted a little as she began to giggle, saying, "What, do you think I can't become Hokage?" "No, it's not that, you don't need to be Hokage for people to respect you." They turned to see a big man with black eyes and brown hair who was shouting, "Sareri," just as Naruto was about to respond. She stood up and bowed, saying, "Hello, father," but he continued to stare at Naruto. Without trying to conceal his displeasure with Naruto, he questioned, "What are you doing with my daughter?" He rambled, "We were training," beneath his icy staircase. Fugaku said, "Let's go," and turned to go. "But father," began Sareri. With more force, he said, "I said let's go," and they departed from Naruto. He pondered why everyone detested him and why he would not accept friends who did not share his hatred. Before he could begin to return home, it was nighttime, and a group of men wearing Konoha headbands stopped him. One of them yelled, "You tried to corrupt Hinata Sama first, and now Sareri Sama." "No, I didn't," scared Naruto said. Another yelled, "Let's kill the demon brat," as they withdrew kunai. Naruto began to run, but he had no idea where to go or who to ask for assistance. A kunai struck him in the back, causing him to fall to the ground. He attempted to stand up, but he was accustomed to target training. He tried to look up, but his vision was rapidly failing. "We have to get rid of his body," a voice from above said. The water on the floor and the stone walls accentuated the sound of Naruto's footsteps as he walked through a dim hallway. The voice that said, "So this is the brat that I have been imprisoned in," stepped closer, sent shivers down his spine as he finally found himself facing a large cage. He followed instructions because he didn't want to enrage whatever it was. Large claws sprang out of the cage, narrowly avoiding him. When Naruto saw the enormous fox in front of him, he nearly threw up. Looking up in horror, he asked, "What are you?" The Kyuubi chuckled and declared, "I am the great Kyuubi, king of Biju." Naruto asked, still too terrified to stand up, "Am I dead?" When the Kyuubi said, "No, I saved your worthless life." "Why?" "Because if you die I die, and that is not something that I can allow," the Kyuubi replied. Naruto said, "So you are the reason that I am hated," in a deadened tone. "Yes," the Biju said plainly. Naruto opened his eyes, which were now gray with rings instead of blue, and started laughing uncontrollably. Everyone would feel his wrath as he exacted his revenge on the Konoha, who believed him to be a demon, so he would demonstrate what a demon was. When Naruto opened his eyes, all he could see was the blonde hair of the person carrying him on their back. "Why am I being helped?" As they traveled at a steady pace to an unidentified location, he asked himself this question before closing his eyes once more. When someone told Fugaku what had happened back at Konoha, he asked casually, no one from the Uchiha clan took part in the boy's murder, did they? No Fugaku. Sama, but none of them stopped it either, the name continued while kneeling in front of Fugaku. Calmly, I have no problem with that, he stated. Sareri yelled at her father, what do you mean? You don't care that a boy was just murdered? She turned when she felt a hand on her shoulder and saw Itachi standing there. Itachi said, come with me, okay, in his typically emotionless tone. Did you hear that the father doesn't care that a boy was murdered? Asked Sareri, bewildered. Itachi said, a lot of people feel the same as father, he was hated by the village for something beyond his control, as she sat on the outside porch. Do you feel the same? No, if I would have been in the village I would have done something to stop it, but I was sent away on a regent mission, Itachi replied. It seems like you are never here anymore, you are always on some mission for the Anbu, Sareri grumbled. You and I are flesh and blood. I'm always going to be there for you, even if it's only as an obstacle for you to overcome. Even if you hate me, that is what big brothers are for. I could never hate you, Itachi, she said as she gave him a hug. Sareri, one more thing, Itachi said, looking up at him. I'm sorry, she said, and his eyes Sharingan went into overdrive, leaving her face blank before she fainted. After 5 years a man with an oddly vacant expression entered the room as a big armchair facing a desk with a view of a raging sea and lightning in the sky. A voice from the armchair said, it is pretty amazing that you managed to get past me, but you are still above me if you came to kill me. When the man said, that is not a Kausukage, Sama, he bowed down. With the same tone of boredom, the Kausukage questioned, then why have you come? The man continued to bow low as he said, I have heard whispers of a plot to destroy Konohagakure. The Kausukage questioned, so you wish me to intervene, now the question is why? There is someone very important to me and I cannot help them, so I wanted to find someone who could. I will pay anything, the man said, his desperation clear in it. The Kausukage responded, very well, I will help, but the cost of my service will not be money but a favor. What is this favor? Be gone before my guard finds you, he said, reaching for 3 folders. When I see your true face, that is the day you will learn of the favor. Kausukage. Sama, there is an intruder, the masked Kunoichi said hastily as the name disappeared and the door flew open to reveal a woman wearing an Oni mask. He said, calm yourself, I am fully aware of the situation, I have a mission for you, without turning to face the visitor. Kunoichi, wearing a mask, hurriedly declared, I will find the intruder immediately. No, that is not it. I want you to take some student to the Chunin exam this year. Sir, I think it is time that we reached out and made connections. Before she noticed files on the Kausukage's desk, she said, hi, took the files, and disappeared. He asked into the darkness, you know what your mission is? And when no one responded, the presence that only he seemed to notice disappeared. After 2 days a rather tall woman who had just finished going through his new charges files was waiting. Her eyes were steel gray, she had short jet black hair, and he was wearing black pants and a shirt with a gray vest. His Hite.8 was wrapped around her left arm. A young boy, who appeared shortly after, was around 13 years old. His long, white hair was tied in a single braid, with the exception of 2 bangs that framed his face. His face was plastered with an odd, almost forced, smile. He wore GI with a black bottom and a pale purple top. Hello sensei, the boy said politely, I apologize for being late. The Junin answered, it's okay, you're fine because the other 2 haven't arrived yet. Then there was a girl wearing black shorts, a gray t-shirt, and a black vest jacket. Her eyes were silver, almost as if she had the Byakugan, and her purple hair was short but still pulled back in a ponytail. Then, a few minutes later, a young blonde girl with 2 pigtails tied in her hair, wearing orange pants, a blue shirt, and an orange jacket, ran towards them holding a piece of toast. Her eyes were a vivid shade of blue. Sorry, I overslept, she said with a smile. The Junin calmly remarked, well, since we are all here, why don't we start with introductions? The white-haired boy continued to smile and said, why don't you start? Very well, my name is Aya, I like books, I dislike excuses, and I believe there are no reasons to fail, just excuses. My dream to serve and protect Arashigakure to the best of my abilities, she said as she glanced between the 3 of them. The white-haired boy continued to smile as he said, my name is Takumi, and I enjoy music that is all about me. The purple-haired girl yelled, Yubaka, you didn't tell us anything about yourself. But Takumi was completely unperturbed. My name is Hotaru. I like sunsets, romantic novels, and beating the hell out of people who annoy me. I dislike annoying people. My dream is find a husband and have kids that totally kick ass. Me next, said the blonde with joy. Hotaru angrily retorted, of course you're next, stupid, there is no one else. The blonde said, Pouting, only stupid people called people stupid, and perspiration started to fall on everyone's heads. As Aya asked, "Go on and tell us about yourself," she was perplexed by what he had gotten himself into. "Hi sensei. My name is Naruto. I like my oni. Sama. I like food. My favorite breakfast food is ramen. My favorite lunch food is ramen. My favorite dinner food is ramen. I also like sweets and bananas. I dislike vegetables unless they are in ramen, and I don't like mean people. My dream is for my oni Sama to be by my side forever," she said with a grin. Takumi said, "You really are a baka," and she pouted once more while maintaining her smile. "Now for the reason you all are here." Aya stated that they were all staring at him. "In 2 months you all will be entering in the Chunin exams in Konoha as ambassadors of Arashigakure, and you have been selected by the Kausukage himself, so don't do anything to dishonor our nation." After 2 months, Aya realized why the Kausukage had selected 2 of them, but Naruto appeared to be a complete idiot and a jerk. Her ability to interact with people was the only aspect of her as a shinobi that he found appealing. There was something about her that attracted others to her. However, he had to have a reason for sending her to take the test. There had to be more to her. She had learned not to question the Kausukage because she was aware of his mysterious methods of operation. As a relatively new village, Arashigakure had already attracted a large number of highly skilled shinobi due to the Kage's alleged powers. One such rumor was that he created the land they are standing on by drawing it from the seafloor. He even has the ability to control life and death, according to some. Although Aya acknowledged that their Kage was strong, she felt that both of these rumors were a bit far-fetched. She watched her students, who were only 8 hours away from Konoha and had been making good progress, as they slept. Despite being a hot-headed girl, Hotaru was quite proficient in taijutsu and ninjutsu. The total opposite of Hotaru, Takumi never seemed to mind anything and always smiled when he insulted a teammate, as if it somehow improved what he was saying. He was very good at ninjutsu and genjutsu, but his taijutsu wasn't bad either. Aya stood up and said, "Okay, let's go." Naruto was complaining that she was still exhausted, but she chose to ignore her as usual. However, it became more difficult as they continued to walk. "Kami, if we don't get to Konoha soon, I promise I'll have a 2-man squad," she thought, tightly closing her eyes and pinching the bridge of her nose. "Look you 3, I have to register you all, so behave while I am gone," she said, aware that it was too much to ask of this group that appeared to start trouble in the most unlikely of situations. Somehow, they managed to get to Konoha with a 3-man squad. Sensei said, "Hi," and all 3 of them smiled at her. She said, "Oh Kami, kill me now," as she began to get a headache from contemplating the trouble they were about to cause. As he passed a silver-haired shinobi reading a book, she heard someone laughing and said, "Let me guess, you have your own bundle of joy." "Yep, and if they aren't trying to kill themselves, someone else is," Kakashi remarked while continuing to read his book. Aya massaged the head and remarked, "I wonder if our sensei felt this way when we were their age." Kakashi replied, "Let's hope so we know our punishment is deserved," before turning to face Aya and asking, "So why are shinobi from Arashigakure here?" "Our Kage decided it was time make alliances with the great nations," replied Aya. Kakashi remarked, "So they must be the best if you only sent 1 squad," glancing back at the pupils, especially the blonde, who he recognized but couldn't place. Aya said, "Let's hope not," with a head shake. Kakashi remarked, "They can't be that bad," and then they heard the arguing as the blonde attempted to stop the purple-haired girl from killing her male teammate. On the back of Kakashi's head, a drop of sweat formed. Poor little Naruto was left to try to break up the fight on her own after the 2 Junin left before they had to. "Look Tamari, it's entertainment," they all said, stopping when they turned to see a man wearing makeup and an outfit that made him appear like an overweight cat, as well as an older blonde girl. Takumi told the newcomers, "I didn't know there was a clown convention here," while continuing to smile. Naruto couldn't contain his laughter. The clown said, "Is there something funny, Pipsqueak? Besides you?" "No," she continued to chuckle. "Why you?" One red-headed figure said, "Konkuro, that's enough," as it emerged from a tree. He was standing next to the others in a flash, saying, "You are an embarrassment and next time I will kill." Tamari and Konkuro both appeared appalled. Takumi's eyes were on Gaara, Hotaru was stunned, and Naruto was focusing on the kanji on Gaara's forehead. She smiled and said, "Love, how cute," seemingly ignoring his remark. "Who do you love?" she asked. He stated, "I love myself and no one else," in a chilly manner. "That's no good, Oni. Sama said that you can only have true power when you fight for something beyond yourself. He said when you find something you would give your life for, that is when you can find a power you never knew you had," Naruto said with a grin. "You have the same eyes as Oni. Sama, her blue eyes peering into his green. "My name is Naruto, what is yours?" After a moment, he said to his teammates, "Gaara, let's go," and turned to leave. Naruto remarked, "He seems nice," after he had disappeared from view. "I'm hungry," she said, ignoring the blank looks from the other two, who simply stared at her, wondering what small world she was in. Her team didn't seem pleased that she had discovered a ramen bar because she would bring them here whenever she had the opportunity. From there, it didn't take her long to locate the ramen stand, which was called Ichiraku Ramen Bar. While strolling through the village that evening, Kakashi saw a masked shinobi dressed entirely in black moving toward the cage tower. Kakashi only knew that he needed to stop them. He had no idea who it was or what they were doing. He threw a kunai to attract the shinobi's attention, but the weapon sped past them without even flinching. As they disappeared into thin air, the masked shinobi turned to face him and waved. Kakashi was aware that he would have to report this minor incident to the Hokage. He did not know whether the Hokage was at home or in his office. He knew that finding him quickly would be too much to ask for because it was getting late. When he arrived at Sarutobi's office, he believed he was not there. Thus, when Kakashi needed to clear his mind or his consciousness, he went to his usual location. "Hokage. Sama," Kakashi said as he approached the elderly Hokage, who was standing next to the memorial stone. "Kakashi, I would say this is unexpected, but we both knew you would be here sooner or later," Sarutobi said with a grin. Kakashi looked at him and said, "So you were looking for me?" "No, but I was a little surprised that I didn't see you earlier," he admitted. "I need to tell you something. There was a masked shinobi outside the Hokage residence," Kakashi stated. "Was it a member of the Anbu?" "No, at least not ours," added Kakashi. "With that out of the way, what about that young Kunoichi?" Kakashi asked, turning to the grinning elderly man. "We will have to keep an eye out for anything out of the ordinary." "Aya?" inquired Kakashi. "Is that her name? You seem to be getting along with her," Sarutobi continued to smile. In response, Kakashi said, "Well, she said her cage wants to form alliances." "Did she say who they were trying to make this alliance with?" "No, but I can ask her the first chance I get," Kakashi remarked casually. He laughed and said, "I am sure you will. Well, good night, Kakashi." Kakashi said, "Good night, Hokage." Sama, as Sarutobi made his way back to his house. "Someone told me you were out here and you wanted to talk to me," he heard as the sun was starting to rise. He turned to see Aya, who was dressed in black pants and a sleeveless shirt, with her gray vest and Hide.8 still on her left arm. Kakashi said, "Well, since you are here, how about breakfast?" With a faint smile, she inquired, "Does that mean I get to see your face?" His statement was humorous. "I can make no promises," he said. "Are you a member of your village's Anbu?" Kakashi asked after noticing a tattoo on her arm as they made their way back to the village. He pointed to her tattoo as her face flushed and she was unable to finish her sentence. "How?" she asked. With his gaze fixed on her, Kakashi said, "I just have one question, was that you last night?" She asked in confusion, "What are you talking about?" "I saw a foreign Anbu last night at the Hokage residence," Kakashi stated. "So you think it was me?" She chuckled. Calmly, "Tell me where you last night?" Kakashi inquired. She scowled and said, "I was in my room," adding, "And if my word isn't enough for you, then I think we have nothing further to discuss. I will see you around Hitaki-san." She then turned to leave. As he watched her go, he thought, "Way to go, Kakashi." He waited for nightfall the following night and made a few circumnavigations of the Hokage residence before going to bed. However, something didn't feel quite right, so he entered the Hokage residence and detected a faint but distinct scent. He found the cage's library by following the scent. When he saw that the door had been sealed, he attempted to open it. He opened his Sharingan to inspect the seal, and then he worked rapidly to break it, a difficult task that he wouldn't have done if it weren't for two things. He learned a few things from the Yondaime, and the first was his Sharingan. The second was his sensei, who was the seal's master. The masked shinobi was sealing a scroll when Kakashi entered the room, but he looked up as he entered the library. The masked shinobi gave Kakashi a wave before hurling the scroll out the window. Kakashi arrived just in time to witness the masked shinobi call forth a fox that fled with the scroll. The masked shinobi then waved at Kakashi again before disappearing. Kakashi was not pleased with whoever it was so talented, confident, and arrogant. The mask informed him that top-secret scrolls had been stolen and that the intruder was an Anbu member from a foreign country. He hated himself for thinking that, but at the moment, Aya was his only lead. If there were other skills close to their Fuinjutsu, he could understand why they were Anbu. He had to first explain what had transpired here tonight to the Hokage. He learned that Anbu had dispatched a team to search for the intruder, but he never thought they would find them. What was more intriguing, though, was what they discovered in the scroll inventory. Nothing was taken, or at least not listed. Kakashi was standing in the Hokage's office with 2 other Junin. Asuma questioned, if nothing was taken, why would they break in? There are many reasons, none of them are a pleasant thought, Kakashi continued. It could be they just wanted to see how skilled they are, or they knew about something that was in there that we didn't. No, I don't think that was the case. I think there was something they wanted, but I don't think they expected you to break through their seal so soon. From what you tell me, it was a very advanced seal and they thought they would have had more time, Sarutobi replied while gazing at the rising sun. Kakashi inquired, what of the scroll I saw them take? It is possible that they were planning on leaving something, Guy stated. Yes, well, we must keep this quiet, Sarutobi responded. Well, you all should get to your teams, this is the first day of the exams after all. Before disappearing, the 3 said, hi, leaving Sarutobi to ponder who could have done this. When the Arashigakure team reached the academy where the first exam was scheduled to be held, they began climbing a flight of stairs but stopped one flight below their intended location. Takumi said, Genjutsu, and then he made the hand gesture, release. The fact that they were on the 2nd floor rather than the 3rd floor startled everyone in the room as they looked around. Who broke the Genjutsu? Asked the 2 at the front of the group as they looked around. Takumi asked with a smile, were we not supposed to? Or were you using it to try to weed out the weak and stupid? He asked, still grinning and insulting half of the group. Naruto grinned and remarked, Takumi, only stupid people call people stupid. Hotaru told Naruto, shut up Baka, as she began to pout. A boy with pale lavender eyes and long dark brown hair approached them and asked, who are you? As he glanced at Takumi. Naruto added, asking for someone's name without first giving your own is impolite. He said, I wasn't talking to you, in a chilly manner. She said, but don't you want to know my name? No, he replied. Her head dropped, and Hotaru tried to lift the blonde's spirits by rubbing her back. That was very nice, Takumi observed, her smile remaining intact. Neji said, I think I will have to wipe that smile from your face, as he began to grow irritated by the smile. You can try, but you will die before that happens, Takumi stated, ignoring Neji's warning. A boy with spiky brown hair, red marks under his eyes, and black pupils that resembled pupils holding a puppy followed by a girl with pink hair and green eyes asked, what's going on here? Takumi grinned at the newcomers and said, nothing, before walking past his 2 teams to their destination, with them trailing behind him. A girl with her hair tied up in 2 buns on top of her head said, Neji, if it can be avoided, we should start fighting this early in the exam. She is right, said a boy with bushy eyebrows, a bowl cut, and green spandex. Naruto turned to Takumi and asked, why do you always smile? As the 3 Arashigakure shinobi approached a large door. Life is too short to spend it doing anything else, he replied. Ooh, I get it, I think, she said, stroking her chin. Hotaru remarked, Naruto, you are fortunate to be so incredibly adorable. Thank you, grinned Naruto. She shook her head and said, it wasn't a compliment, while Naruto simply stared in confusion. Gaara was the first person Naruto saw when they entered the room. She was standing in a corner, away from everyone else, and she darted around the room. She said, hi Gaara. Kun, before tripping and falling to the ground, hitting her face. I guess that is why Sensei tells me not to walk and talk at the same time, she said, laughing as she sat up and rubbed the back of her head. Tamari was asked by Kankuro, is she serious? Tamari exclaimed incredulously, Gaara. Kun, and they both turned to face Gaara, who appeared unaware of the circumstance. Standing perilously close to him, she smiled and said, Gaara. Kun, it's me Naruto, remember? Tamari and Kankuro appeared frightened that he would murder this girl. To their surprise, however, he didn't. Instead, he simply gazed at the girl as if she were the first person he had ever seen. Naruto's words, its mean freaky eyes, were loud enough for everyone in the room to hear as the door soon opened again and the Neji's team entered. Kankuro and Tamari appeared even more perplexed as Neji glared at her. Kankuro questioned, is she really this stupid? Hotaru said, yes she is, with a head shake. After a few minutes, the door opened once more, letting 3 more people in. Naruto noticed that one of them was carrying a puppy. What a cute puppy, can I pet him? She exclaimed as she hurried to join the group, grinning Kiba. He yelled as the dog leapt into her arms, I guess, but I warn you he doesn't really, Akamaru you traitor. Even dogs don't like you dog boy, smirked Sareri. Dog boy, is that your name, Mayan Naruto, she said, grinning at him, and Kiba pouted. He yelled, my name is Kiba, at her. Well, nice to meet you, dog boy, she said with a smile. A boy with black hair, styled to resemble a pineapple, was next to a boy with blonde and blue eyes, and then a rather large boy eating a bag of chips. "Isn't this troublesome?" a bored tone asked. Something about it made her think of Takumi. "It looks like there are 9 of us that made it," said a smiling boy. Next came a boy wearing sunglasses despite being inside, followed by a girl with short black hair and the same mean, freaky eyes. The sight of Naruto caused the girl with the strange eyes to flush. She said, "Hello, I'm Naruto," but the girl didn't respond. "I will call you Shy Freaky Eyes," she laughed. "So there is Dog Boy, Mean Freaky Eyes, Shy Freaky Eyes, then Pineapple Head, and Clown Ngara. Kun, I am meeting a lot of people." The blonde remarked, "It seems like you only know one person's name." Sweat drops appeared on the back of everyone's head as Naruto pointed to the Uchiha and said, "Gaara. Kun's name isn't Gaara. Kun, because she told me his name was Dog Boy. Since no one else would tell me their names, I had to make them up for them, and it had to be something I would remember." Kiba questioned, "Are you stupid or something?" "Only stupid people call people stupid, stupid," she said, nudging him with her tongue. A boy with long gray hair and glasses approached them and exclaimed, "Wow, you all are loaded." Sareri asked icily, "Do you have a problem with us?" He pointed over his shoulder and said, "No, but they do," while the people behind him were all glaring at them. Naruto glanced around before spotting Gaara once more. She exclaimed joyfully, "Hey Gaara. Kun, come over and meet my new friends." "She is really troublesome," declared Shikamaru, also known as the Pineapple Head. "Since you all are rookies, I will give you some advice. Keep a low profile, it will help you get far," he told them. "Who are you?" Sareri said, giving him a fierce look. "It is rude to ask for someone's name without giving your own first. It's like this. My name is Naruto," she said with a grin. He grinned and said, "I am Kabuto," to her. "I like you, Kabuto. Most people here won't tell me their names, so I have to make one up for them," she said with a grin. Kabuto chuckled and simply smiled up at him. "You are a strange one," she said. "So Kabuto, how many times have you taken this exam?" Kiba responded. He said, "This will be my 7th, with a sheepish smile." Naruto exclaimed, "Wow, you must know a lot about this exam," in awe. "Apparently not if he failed 6 times, asserted Shikamaru. When Naruto said, "Be nice, Pineapple Head, it could be really hard," he frowned. "Well, over my years I have been collecting information on participates. I have information on almost everyone in here," Kabuto stated. Sareri said, "So who don't you have information on?" His gaze was fixed on Naruto. "The shinobi from Arashigakure," he said. "I will help you out. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I like food. My favorite breakfast food is ramen. My favorite lunch food is ramen. My favorite dinner food is ramen. I love sweets. I like fruit. My favorite is bananas. I hate vegetables unless they are in ramen." She was interrupted by Kabuto, who was beaming toward her. "That isn't the kind of information I have on people. I will show you. Tell me someone you want to know about," Kabuto replied. "Mean Freaky Eyes," she responded with a nod. "All right," he said, drawing a card from his deck and inserting his chakra into it. "Neji Hyuga is a year older than all of you, but he is taking the exam for the first time, just like you. He won Rookie of the Year the previous year, and his teammates are Rock Lee and Tenten. To find out who he should stay away from at all costs, Shikamaru asked, "So who do you think the strongest here is?" Kabuto stated, "I would have to see either Neji or Gaara." Naruto said, "I would disagree," and nodded. Kabuto questioned, "Who would you say the strongest here is?" "Me," she exclaimed with a smile. "You, what would make you think that?" Kiba questioned doubtfully. She claimed to have shown beyond a reasonable doubt that Oni-sama wouldn't have let me come if he didn't think so. Kabuto inquired, "Who is your Oni-sama?" "He is the greatest shinobi ever," she beamingly declared. She must know the Kausukage, which is interesting, but I reasoned that nobody had ever seen his face before, so if this girl is that familiar with him, there might be some validity to her claims, Kabuto thought. Kabuto questioned, "What is his name?" She giggled and said, "I can't tell you, it's a secret." Everyone was intrigued by this, but then a man wearing a long black trench coat and a black bandana bearing the Konoha symbol appeared. Everyone followed his instructions when he said, "Okay, everyone line up and take a number, then sit in the seat with your number on it." After entering, there was a lot of talk about the test. I said, "Shut up, you brats." Everyone went quiet. "My name is Ibiki Morino. I will be the proctor for the first part of the Chunin exam. The rules are simple. Listen up. I will not repeat myself. I will not answer any questions, and you all will remain silent. The first rule: you all start off with a perfect score. You lose points for incorrect answers. Your team scores will be added together, but if one team member get a 0, the whole team fails. Second, you will lose 2 points every time that you are caught cheating. If you are caught cheating 5 times, you and your team will fail the test. Third, when you have 10 minutes left in the test, you will get the 10th and final question of the exam. Any questions? He asked, looking around, but no one raised their fingers. Good, you all were listening. You have 1 hour now, begin. Wondering how her students were doing, Aya sat down at a restaurant. She had faith in Takumi and Hotaru, but Naruto? Well, she was Naruto. While she sat there, she watched Kakashi enter the restaurant with 3 other shinobi. She wondered if he still believed she was the shinobi wearing the mask. It was obvious that he said yes from the way he sat down across the restaurant. She began to wonder who he had seen, and based on their behavior, something else occurred. The crowd had significantly diminished by the 10 minutes remaining in the exam. It's time for the 10th question, and this one has a different set of rules than the previous 9. Ibiki told them to pay attention. First, you don't have to receive the final question, but if you don't answer it, you and your team fail the test. Sakura said, so why wouldn't we opt to answer the final question? Ibiki scowled in response. Because if you chose to hear the 10th question and you get it wrong, you don't just fail, but you can never take the test again. But it won't affect your team. If they get it right, they can pass, he explained with a grin. But if you opt not to answer the final question, you are free to take the test at some other time. So this question is all or nothing, it's your choice. People began raising their hands slowly as they left the room with their teammates. At last, nobody else put up their hands. This is your last chance. Is there anyone else who would like to withdraw? Ibiki asked, surveying the field, which had shrunk from over 150 to roughly 54. Very well then, you all pass, he said with a faint smile, and no one raised their hand. Sakura yelled, what can we do about the 10th question? That was the 10th question, reported Ibiki. He went on to answer the final query, but before he could do so, someone burst through the window. A light-haired woman yelled to the remaining pupils, listen up, maggots. Hey Ibiki, you are losing your touch, there are a lot of them remaining. Ibiki said, no, this year's batch are smarter than normal, from behind a banner with the word, Enko, written on it. The woman they assumed to be Enko said, well, that doesn't matter when I'm done with them, at least half of them will be gone. Meet me at Battleground 44 tomorrow at 10 for further details, and then she disappeared. When Enko announced that they would be spending 5 days in the forest, everyone heard Naruto exclaim, 5 days no ramen, that is just evil. A few people laughed at her outburst. The following day, the teams that had advanced to the next rounds had gone to Training Grounds 44 as directed. They knew that the longer they waited, the more difficult it would be to obtain the scroll, or rather, find one. So they immediately began searching for someone who had it once they were in the forest. Naruto saw a small fox with a scroll in its mouth while they were traveling. She approached the fox when they weren't looking and took the scroll, which had the word, Uchiha, written on it. She said, shocking her teammates with this brilliant idea, why don't we split up so we can find the scroll sooner? That is a good idea, but be careful, and if you can't win, run, Hotaru said, glancing at Naruto, who merely smiled. After Takumi stated, we will meet back here in 2 hours, they all left. After she frantically searched for the Uchiha in her group, the Uchiha threw the scroll at her. Naruto leapt to his feet and grabbed the scroll. What are you doing? Yelled Sareri. With her head tilted sideways in confusion, Naruto said, you didn't want it, so I am taking it. With a shout, you are going to get us all killed, Sareri said. She turned to the Kusa shinobi and said, well, then we should kill, what's your name? The Kusa shinobi remarked, it doesn't matter, you will be dead before you can use it. She smiled and said, well, I will call Creepy Girl Guy. Naruto was much quicker than anyone had anticipated. She almost struck the shinobi in the back, but he avoided it. Then he took his scroll out. You want to play in order for you to get my scroll, which you obliviously want, or you won't be fighting, the shinobi replied. She rubbed the back of her head and said, yeah, I need both of them because I forgot which scroll I have. Why did you do that? She asked, horrified, as she watched him eat it. The shinobi said, now you have to kill me if you want it. Naruto grabbed his wrist to maintain her balance before the Kusa shinobi appeared in front of her and punched her in the face before she could get to him. She then released her grip to clean her face of the blood. The shinobi said, I will let you leave your scroll as a reward for your courage. As she struggled to stand after the last blow, she asked, and them? I will kill them, was his response. She smiled and said, then I will have to decline your offer, they are my friends, before being struck in the stomach and then again in the face, sending her flying backward. Kiba caught her before she hit the tree. Then he calmly asked, why do you fight for them? They would have taken my deal. She tried to stand up and revealed 5 senbon in her right hand. The shinobi began to make hand signals, but before he could finish, she threw the needles. He thought he dodged them all, but the chakra he had been building up dissipated, and he looked down to see that one had hit him. That maybe, but if I left, I would never be able to look Oni Sama in the eyes again. Running to save my own life, that is not the way of the shinobi, she said. You are something hitting me and disrupting my chakra from there. It is a shame I have to kill you, the shinobi replied. After removing the senbon from his arm, he began to make his hand signals once more, but Sareri attacked this time. She owed this girl nothing, and she didn't know what had driven her to act in such a crazy way. The only thing was that she made her think of someone she had seen in a childhood dream. You are skilled, but you still have a long way to go to reach Itachi. But for your valiant fight I will give you 2 gifts, one is your life and the second is your life. Sareri did well for a while, but things started to change. No matter what she did to him, he would keep getting up. She glared at the shinobi and asked, what is the second? He bit Sareri's neck and stretched his neck, saying, this, at which point Naruto grabbed Sareri's wrist. The shinobi sat up, looking perplexed, and then he saw that she had grabbed her wrist when he struck her. She had sealed him, and she had sealed Sareri as well. He yelled, what did you do? I ruined your plans. You can get near here without being blasted back, and the harder you try the stronger the seal, she said with a grin. He hit her, causing her to crash into the tree. You bitch, I will kill you, he said. You don't have much time, soon Anbu will be here, and then what will you do? She said with weakness. He yelled, they are not coming, but they are, I sent for them, she said, smiling rather weakly. I may not be the strongest or the smartest, but I do have my moments. His words, you win this time but next time you will not be so lucky, vanished. The moment he left, she fainted. Kiba said, Sakura, what do we do? We have to get them out of here in case he comes back, she added. Sakura hosted Sareri over her shoulder while Kiba picked up Naruto. They located a hiding spot where they could wait for their 2 friends to recover from the conflict. They really are impressive, who would have thought that an airhead like her would be so skilled, said Kiba. Sakura sat down between the 2 sleeping girls and remarked, you can't be too surprised. Why is that? Inquired Kiba. Well, they only sent 3 genin, so you know they had to be the best in the village or they would have sent others, Sakura said, but even still I never thought that she would have been as skilled as she is with Fuinjutsu. What is that? My god Kiba, you call her an airhead, and Fuinjutsu or seals, she shook her head. Do you think something happened to her? Asked Hotaru as Takumi and he waited for Naruto elsewhere. No, knowing her she got lost, Takumi grinned. Her tone was deadpan. You know this is a really inappropriate time to smile, she said. He continued to smile and said, hi, before they set out to find their missing teammate. They noticed something in the morning. 3 shinobi from Oto were facing one of the Konoha shinobi Naruto had been speaking with. Then they saw another obstructing a makeshift shelter's entrance. When Takumi said, one of them is hurt, she smiled. Again with the inappropriate smiling, she responded, so what do you want to do? Takumi grinned and said, we would have to help if Naruto was here. Takumi said, then I guess we help, and the 2 of them emerged behind the trio of Oto shinobi. We will give you a chance to leave your scroll and run like good little shinobi, Hotaru grinned. The one who appeared to be a mummy said, you think you 2 scare us? He started to do something to his arms but stopped when he noticed a kunai against his neck. He then turned his head slightly to see Hotaru. The bloodlust in her eyes gave me a reason, and I promise that when I'm done, you won't have a drop of blood left in you. The other 2 tried to assist but were immobile. You see, I am very skilled in 3 areas. 1 is genjutsu, 2 ninjutsu, and 3 is with weapons. All 3 of these and be used in one hell of a way, Takumi said with a grin on his face. My genjutsu was just enough so you didn't notice it, and just enough for you not to notice the ninjutsu and the wire which you were trapped in that has my chakra flowing through it so you can't break it, and your lives are literally in my hands. Hotaru pressed the blade closer to his neck, causing blood to trickle down the tip. So tell us who has the scrolls and we will let you leave this place, and the quicker you tell us the few pieces there will be, he said. The mother said, fine, it's right here, just let us go, dismissing it. Takumi, you know what to do, smirked Hotaru, you said. When the Oto shinobi used feather illusion jutsu, they fainted at their feet. Hotaru took the scroll in his hands. She turned to face the 2 Konoha shinobi and asked, have you 2 seen Naruto? Now we have both of them lucky, she said. Sakura said, yes, she is with us, letting her guard down. Takumi smiled and asked, what did you do to her? But Sakura's eyes froze as she turned to face the shinobi. Sakura continued by explaining everything that transpired, saying, we did everything, she found us and helped us out, but she was hurt when she did. Kiba entered a makeshift shelter and returned with Naruto in his arms. So our team has saved you all twice, Hotaru said. Hand over Naruto and we will be on our way. 2 scrolls depicting a heaven and an earth fell out of her pouch as he handed her over. "Wow, she managed to get both," said Hotaru, who was impressed. "Probably because she forgot which one we needed," Takumi said. Kiba stared in disbelief, wondering how she had gotten both. He knew she had theirs, which they couldn't bring themselves to take away while she was sleeping, but he couldn't figure out how she got the second. Takumi grinned and said, "If you need them, you can have them, we don't need them." Asking, "What's the catch?" Sakura said. "When we need your help, you owe us 3 times over," he said, and Kiba picked up the scrolls. They followed Hotaru's instructions, saying, "Why don't you get your teammate and we will head to the base together safely in numbers?" The group arrived at the center after 2 hours, and it took the 2 of them an additional hour to wake up. While waiting for his team inside, Kakashi approached Aya and asked, "Aya, can I talk to you?" after noticing that she was sitting by herself. With composure, she inquired, "What do you need? Are you skilled in Fuinjutsu?" She eyed him and said, "I have a little skill but no more than any other Junin. Why?" With a smile, she said, the masked shinobi was a skilled Fuinjutsu. Kakashi sat next to her and asked, "How did you guess?" "Because I know that you think that it was me and then you asked me about seals," she replied, "but Kakashi, it wasn't me, it would be going against my orders to do anything like that. I was ordered to make connections." He apologized, "I am sorry for accusing you." She smiled and said, "It's okay, just don't do it again." "Sensei, we made it," said a voice that Aya was all too familiar with. "How did she make it this far? She has not stealth," Aya remarked, burying her face in her hands. 5 minutes before they saw Naruto, they heard her. Kakashi laughed and said, "That is skill," while Aya gave him a stern look. "Sensei, when do we get to head back? I haven't had any ramen since, I don't know, I have lost count, it has been too long," Naruto said with a pitiful expression. Aya exclaimed, "It's only been 3 days," incredulously. She remarked, "But that is like 3 years when it comes to not having ramen," as she shed amusing tears. Aya smirked at him and said, "Kakashi will take you to get all the ramen you want after this is over." Knowing this would be bad for his pocketbook, he asked, "Me, why me?" "Because I said so," she said, her expression menacing. He said, "Okay," with a defeated expression on his face. They were reduced to 20.1 at the end of the 5 days, but they discovered that there were still too many and that they would need to battle to advance to the following round. After coming this far, they were all taken aback by Kabuto's silence, but they couldn't consider that right now. "So how did you get in here?" Kabuto asked as he halted his progress down a tunnel. According to a voice from the shadows, "I can get anywhere I wish." Kabuto tried to get him to continue talking by asking, "So who are you and what do you want?" in an attempt to find out the stranger's location. "I am a shadow, as for what I want, what Orochimaru is planning," the voice stated coolly. Kabuto looked around and said, "Oh, what makes you think that he was planning something?" "Because those Auto Shinobi told me all I wanted to know through a little persuasion. I can use the same form of persuasion on you, but then you would die, so it is up to you," the voice said quietly. "He is after the Uchiha, but someone placed a seal on her, so taking her right now is impossible," Kabuto stated. He was hoping for an answer, but there was none. He didn't express it, but he was afraid because they didn't know anything about him and this man knew too much. When Sai and Sareri Uchiha first faced off, Sai gave Sareri a smile that really infuriated her. She attempted to use her Sharingan, but she was able to do so without hurting herself. Without her chakra, she was forced to defeat him. As much as she hated to admit it, he was very skilled, which made things extremely complicated. She attacked him, but it was only an ink clone. After that, everything went south. She did her best to stay away from his ink beast, but every time she got close to him, something struck her. Sai sat atop the statue and said, "Sareri, there is no shame in defeat, just give up." She attempted to stand up, but her strength was insufficient. "Sareri Chan, don't give up," she said as she looked up to see Naruto supporting her. After that, she recalled how a boy with blonde hair, blue eyes, and whisker marks on his cheeks had encouraged her to keep going on the training field. His name was Naruto, she muttered to herself, but who was he? She stood up, glaring up at Sai, and ran toward him while avoiding the beast he had made. When she finally kicked him in the head, he fell to the ground, and before he could get up, she kicked him once more. Sai was beaten back down each time he attempted to stand up until he gave up. The next fight pitted Shino against Kankuro. As the fight was going on, Kakashi took Sareri to seal the curse mark. He was carrying out his actions when he sensed that someone else was present, and when he turned around, he saw Orochimaru standing there. My Kakashi. Kun, you have grown. I hear you are very skilled with seals like your old sensei," he grinned. Kakashi, preparing to strike, asked, "What do you want?" Orochimaru grinned and remarked, Kakashi-kun, you already know what I want and you already know that you can't beat me. As Kakashi said, if you are so sure then why don't you try and get her? The room echoed with the sound of 1,000 birds. Orochimaru pointed to his wrist and said, because it would do any good. That girl's seals are quite troublesome, don't you agree, Kakashi-kun? Kakashi briefly glanced back at Sareri's wrist before asking, who cast the seal? Orochimaru grinned even more as he said, she is just as much of a hindrance as your old sensei, though I must admit she isn't that skilled yet. Orochimaru simply grinned and asked, who is it? But his smile soon vanished when a second person showed up without warning. Calmly, a figure in a black hood cloak said, I think it is time for you to leave, Orochimaru. Can you make me? He smiled and asked. No, I don't think, Kakashi, and I can beat you, but we won't go down easily, and then you would have to deal with every shinobi in here including the Hokage, and you don't want that right now. The newly arrived visitor replied calmly. Orochimaru retreated into the darkness, scowling. What are you doing? Kakashi asked, poised to strike, as the hooded figure turned to face Sareri and put his hand on the mark. He said, I am going to remove the curse, and as his hand started to glow a faint gold, Sareri started to scream in agony. When the stranger took his hand away, she passed out, but the curse and the stranger were both gone. The seal was still on her wrist, though. When Kakashi returned to the arena after escorting her to the hospital wing, he discovered that it had been a double KO and Naruto and Yoroi's fight came next. Quit so I don't have to hurt you, Naruto said with a smile at her opponent. With laughter in his voice, he said, I know who you are the girl who can't walk and talk at the same time without hurting yourself, adding, this will be easy. When the proctor began the match, she grabbed 2 kunai and threw them both at him. Her expression changed from that of a sweet, innocent girl to that of a fighter, her eyes growing cold and hard. They landed on either side of him, and when she made a hand gesture, he felt electricity pulse through him and fell to his knees in agony. He stood up, panting, and she relaxed. She said, next I kill, so it is up to you, with a tone of death. Let's see if you can, he said, his head glowing blue as he lunged for her, but she ducked and he froze, immobile. With the same lethal tone, she said, you don't have much time left, is there anyone you would like to say goodbye to? What are you talking about, I don't have much time left? She pulled the senbon from his neck and said, you see all the blood is rushing to your head right now and soon you will start bleeding from your eyes, nose, mouth and ears. He started to cry, you could have been saved, but it's too late. You will be dead before the medical team reaches you. Blood started to pour from his eyes. His eyes widened in horror as she whispered something in his ears, then she left and he fell to the ground. He was already dead when the medical staff removed him from the arena. Kiba, who is the one that placed the seal on Sareri? She asked, frightening everyone as she ascended. Kiba nervously waved at the blonde who was grinning at him and asked, she did something to keep that freak from getting her away. Kakashi reflected, so she is the one who broke into the Hokage residence. He approached Aya. Is there something that you need, Kakashi? Asked Aya. He said, I need to talk to you, and she trailed him a short distance away as Tenden prepared to face Shikamaru in the upcoming fight. I think I found who the masked shinobi, Kakashi muttered. Wondering why he was telling her, she asked, who? And then realized, Kakashi, you can't be serious. I am. She is the most skilled fuinjutsu user I have seen since Yondaime, and her mannerism fit the shinobi I saw, Kakashi replied calmly. She looked at her student and asked, if it was here, what will happen to her? I don't know, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk to her because I believe you had no knowledge of this, he replied. I am guessing it would be too much to talk to her alone, Aya replied. Hi, I am sorry. Well, it's better than nothing, Aya remarked, inhaling deeply. Naruto, may I speak with you, my love? Her response to the 2 Junin was, hi sensei, as she ran. As politely as she could, Aya said, Naruto, I need you to answer me honestly. Can you do that for me? Of course sensei, she grinned. She inquired, who taught you fuinjutsu? Oni. Sama, of course, Naruto acknowledged with a smile. Who is your Oni? Sama. I'm afraid I can't tell you, I'm sorry, sensei, Naruto said, her smile growing lighter. Between the 2 of them, she appeared concerned before responding, did you sneak into the Hokage residence? Hi, sensei, she murmured. What did you steal? She said, I can tell you, with a head shake. Kakashi stated, we can always have the Anbu force it out of you, in an emotionless tone. She was unfazed by the threat, though. I have a seal that I placed on my mind, and if you try to force me to the anywhere I will wipe my own mind so I won't remember anything, and if you kill me the seal will active and wipe my mind blank so there is no way to get what you want, she stated calmly. Kakashi questioned, why would you go so far? Information is useless if everyone knows who have it, she stated quietly, but I didn't steal anything, I just took what was rightfully Oni Sama's. Aya looked at the Junin in front of her and asked, Kakashi, what are you going to do? He looked at the young girl and said, I don't know, but I have to tell Hokage Sama, adding, you understand why I have to do this, but I don't think you are a bad girl. Hi, Aya murmured. They all three went outside to witness Shikamaru being declared the winner. Hotaru versus Ino came next. Are you as strong as the rest of the genin from your village? Hotaru asked. Yes, Ino said with assurance. Hotaru shrugged and said, well, then this should be easy. The only question now is whether or not I should kill you. We will see if you can kill me, Ino said, appearing prepared for battle but lacking confidence. After giving a quick wink, Hotaru disappeared and reappeared behind her, holding a kunai against the Ino's neck. You are slow, my dear, I think you are weaker than your friends. How did you make it this far? I bet it was your cute teammate, she whispered to her. She then leapt back from Ino after removing the kunai from her neck. Hey cutie, she said, glancing at Shikamaru, will you go on a date with me if I let her live? His tone was one of boredom as he asked, if I say no? Then I kill Blondie, she responded. Shikamaru uttered the words, she's troublesome, so go ahead, casually. Sakura yelled, Shikamaru, at him. Fine, he replied. Hotaru faced Ino once more. It looks like you get alive. From here on out, not weapons of ninjutsu, just taijutsu, so I don't kill you by mistake, she told Ino, who was still unsure that she could defeat her opponent with just taijutsu when he had already shown that she was significantly faster. She was correct that the battle lasted far less time than Hotaru would have preferred. Neji and Hinata came next. Neji walked confidently down, while Hinata appeared shy. However, as she descended, she saw a man with bright blue eyes, spiky blonde hair, and whisker marks standing in the pathway leading into the arena. This boy was standing there, seemingly unnoticed by anyone. He gave her a big smile and a thumbs up, and when she blinked, he disappeared. Is there something wrong? The proctor inquired. Her response was, no, I just thought I saw someone. As soon as the fight began, it became evident that Neji was stronger than Hinata. They all quickly realized that his goal was to kill her, even though it initially appeared that he was only trying to embarrass her. With one hand on Neji's wrist and the other holding a kunai aimed at Neji's throat, Takumi stopped Neji before he could deliver the final blow. Takumi had lost his smile. With scornful eyes, they all hoped he would smile once more. It is not right to humiliate your opponent when they clearly were doing their best. Yes, we all know you are physical more gifted, but she is stronger than you will ever be, he said with a cool voice, and you better hope we don't met in combat because I will treat you as you have treated her. Hinata's injuries began to heal, Naruko's head began to glow green, and Naruko leapt down and grabbed her before she hit the ground. She was taken to the hospital by the medical team as they raced onto the battlefield. As he turned to face his teammate, Takumi lowered his weapon and said, "We're done here." His smile returned. She said, "Hi," and the two of them headed back to their sensei. Takumi and Choji engaged in combat next. As he descended, Choji appeared to be about to pass out. "I will end this quick, I don't like my opponent suffer. They fight with honor, so shall their defeat," Takumi said with a grin. With a terrified tone, Choji asked, "You're not going to kill me, are you?" "No, I will not kill you," Choji said as he prepared to use his jutsu, but the group gave way beneath him, trapping him. "Surrender, there is no shame in surrender, but there is in quitting," the arm said as it started to close in on him, crushing him. His words were, "I surrender," then he came to the realization that everything had been a delusion. "What is the difference between surrender and quitting?" Choji inquired. Takumi grinned and said, "Surrender is a strategic move. Quitting is one of cowardice." The next opponent was Gaara, who faced Masumi. After Gaara quickly killed him, Kiba faced Rock Lee, whose taijutsu was too strong for Kiba, and Sakura faced Temari, who easily defeated Sakura. The remaining 8, with the exception of Sareri, who was in the hospital, gathered to learn the outcome of the final exam section following all the battles. They all had a month to get ready for another battle tournament style event. A few days after the conclusion of the second round, the matchups were set, with Takumi facing Neji, Temari facing Shikamaru, Sareri facing Gaara, Lee facing Naruko, and the winner facing Hotaru. Sareri was sleeping in a hospital bed the day after the pairings were revealed when a hooded figure approached her slowly, took something from his cloak, and placed it on the table next to her. Her eyes opened, and she briefly caught a glimpse of the stranger. She sat up and searched the area for her guests, but they were nowhere to be seen. Then Kakashi entered the room as the door opened. He was reading his usual book when he said, "Yo," and then he glanced at the table next to her desk. "Who came to visit you?" he asked. She answered, I don't know, after noticing the flower on her desk. Then, turning to face someone she could see, Kakashi started a brief conversation before leaving, saying he needed to investigate something and leaving her alone once more. She picked up a card that was lying beneath the flower after noticing something else. It was a typical get well card with the words, same time and same place, as the first time Sareri Shan, written on it in place of a name. For a long time, she gazed at the card, wondering who could have sent it. Only 2 people called her Chan, and the majority called her Haim. Naruto was one of them, and she initially believed the other to be a dream, but she began to suspect otherwise. She made the decision to try to get together with this individual. However, she received a lot of visitors during the day, and it was almost time for her to depart in order to meet up with her unidentified associate. In order to get her out of the room, Sareri said, Ino, could you get me a nurse? She joyfully said, okay, and as soon as the door closed, she leapt out the window and ran to the park, where she saw only children playing. She sat on a swing and her gaze fell on a boy with blue eyes, blonde hair, and whisker marks on his face. He grinned at her, and she simply stared at him in disbelief. She rose and approached him. His smile said, hey Sareri Shan, to her. Confused, she said, but you. He smiled and said, Sareri Shan, you look like you have seen a ghost, but it quickly vanished and was replaced by a terrified expression. You haven't seen a ghost, have you? He asked. When she saw that he was not wearing a Hide.8, she burst out laughing and said, I thought it was your dream to become Hokage. It was, he said, grinning slightly. She leaned against a tree and said, what happened? I haven't seen you since that day, and I thought it had all been a dream. I left the village shortly after that and this is my first time back, and I thought to myself what is the first thing I should do here, and it was easy get ramen, he said with a grin, causing Sareri to, and after I had my fill of ramen I went to see you but you were rather busy with the Chunin exam. So how long have you been here? A while now, was his honest response. So who knows you are here? You, he stated, making her blush once more, I remember when I met you. I was sitting over at the swings and I saw you all alone standing over here, and you were waiting for your brother. You never told me your brother's name. She said icily, I never want to speak of him again, with a look of pure hatred on her face. Okay Sareri Shan, he said, ignoring her tirade. Okay. Okay, is that all you have to say? You don't know what it is like to be alone, she yelled at him. He said calmly, but his eyes were as cold as ice, really I don't know what it is like to be alone. Then she recalled what he had said to her years before. I guess, but I don't have any parents. I'm sorry, she said, lowering her head slightly in embarrassment. Don't worry about it because I am not alone anymore. I have found those important to me and I would do anything for them just to see them smile. To shift the conversation, she said, do you remember the training we did here? Yeah, he smiled, but now I think we are in completely different leagues, he laughed. We always were in different leagues, she smirked. He said, I guess you were right, as a melancholy smile briefly appeared on his face as he gazed at the training grounds. Naruto, there is a girl who looks a lot like you and her name is even very similar to yours. Do you know anything about her? As much as someone can know about another, she is my little sister, he said with a grin. I met her after I left the village. So, what about your parents, did you meet them? Hi, but they are dead. She said, I am sorry, Naruto, understanding the anguish of losing a family member. I am proud to be their son, he said with his trademark foxy grin, but Sareri Shan, I will see you later. They have come looking for you. Don't be they died heroes, they gave their lives to save so many. She saw Kakashi approaching them and then turned around to see Naruto gone, leaving a flower in his wake. Sareri, what are you doing out of the hospital? She asked, picking it up. She looked down at the flower and said, I came to meet up with an old friend. Can I ask you something, Kakashi? I guess, he said, sounding bored. Without glancing at him, she said, there was a blonde boy, who used to live here. What do you know about him? Naruto, he was a nice boy, a shame what happened to him, Kakashi remarked, shaking his head. What do you mean? Kakashi said, he was murdered a few years back, and Sareri came to a complete halt. With haste, Sareri inquired, did he have any siblings? Did you know his parents? Taking a deep breath, Kakashi stated, it is best to answer these questions in front of the Hokage. Why? She inquired, unsure of who she was speaking to in the event that Naruto had passed away. Let's go to the Hokage and he will answer what he deems appropriate, Kakashi's well-known eye smile was displayed. The Hokage was taken aback to find Sareri in his office when they got there. He grinned and said, Sareri, this is a rare privilege, so what brings you here today? I'm curious about Naruto, she stated coolly. Sarutobi appeared to anticipate this. Yes, that girl does look a lot like him and act like him. You would almost think it was a copy of him, but a lovely young lady, he said with a smile. Is it possible that she is his sister? No, sadly that is not the case. How do you know? His parents only had one kid and both died during the Kyuubi attack, Sarutobi stated. So you knew his parents? Hi, they were some of the greatest shinobi I have ever met. If his parents were so great, then why was he hated? Because every few knew the boy's heritage, and I am sorry it is not something that I can tell you at the moment, Sarutobi replied. According to Sareri, one last question, yes my dear, was his response. Where is he buried? It pains me to say but his body was never recovered. Then how do you know he is dead if you never found his body? What if we only thought he was dead? Kakashi questioned, is there a reason behind this question? Sareri said, no reason, as she left the room. She began to question whether that was indeed Naruto and why he claimed to have a sister if he could not have met his parents if they had perished in the Kyuubi attack. The most important query, though, was how Naruto was 5 years prior to his murder. The only person who could explain any of this to her was Naruto, so she needed to speak with him. She was correct when she guessed where the blonde was. There was a pile of bowls next to Naruto as she sat at the ramen stand. Sareri said, Naruto, I want to talk to you about something, and the girl turned a noodle that was hanging from her mouth while wearing a perplexed expression. She gulped the noodle and said, about what? Your Oni. Sama, said Sareri calmly. What about him? She inquired, her expression still bewildered. Can we talk somewhere a little more private? She followed Sareri back to her house after saying, I guess so, and leaving the cash on the counter. Is Naruto Uzumaki your brother? A little taken aback, she asked, you know Oni, Sama? So it is him? Naruto said, hi, and nodded. But how his parents died 12 years ago and he died 5 years ago, an only child, Sareri replied quietly. Naruto merely grinned. Hi, our parents did die all those years ago, but Naruto Oni Sama didn't. He was saved by a passing shinobi and he was trained in the ninja arts, but the extent of his training I am not sure of, but when he is around I am sure anything is possible, and during his training he met our parents. Where do you fit in all of this? I don't know, I don't remember anything before 3 years ago, but ever since then he was the one taking care of me ever since, replied Naruto. So why hasn't Naruto returned to the village before now? Naruto inquired. He has returned? According to Sareri, yes, I just saw him. Well, at first it was because he hated this place, now I don't think he saw a reason to, Naruto replied. You mean he doesn't hate this place anymore? No, I think what he feels I more pity anything else. Sareri said, it's late, you should stay here for the night, as she made her way to her room. She said, thank you Sareri-chan, with joy. Sareri didn't see Naruto for the next month. It seemed as though he had disappeared. Even though she was a skilled shinobi and acted like an airhead most of the time, she and Naruto had become good friends. Her genjutsu was terrible, her ninjutsu was not much better, and her taijutsu was decent due to her speed and agility, but what made her stand out was her medical jutsu, her understanding of the human body, and her fuinjutsu. She learned not to mention 2 things. First, who her parents were, and second, Oni Sama, who she would only mention a few things she already knew. On their way to the stadium, they saw a blonde grinning at them, but he disappeared as soon as someone moved in front of them. There was a new proctor for the 3rd exam when they eventually arrived at the stadium. As the first battle was preparing to begin, Takumi faced off against Neji, the bottle's favorite. The winner of the battle will be decided when their opponent is dead or can no longer fight. I reserve the power to end the match if I feel the need, the official calmly stated. Give up, you can't beat me, Neji was saying. I am the worst opponent for you, Takumi grinned. Why is that? If you know others and know yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. If you do not know others but know yourself, you win 1 and lose 1. If you do not know others and do not know yourself, you will be imperiled in every single battle, Takumi continued. You think you know your enemy and you believe you know yourself, but you are mistaking on both accounts, and I will prove it during this battle. Neji said, let's see if you can back up this bold prediction, punching Takumi in the heart while he was still grinning. Takumi then burst into 1,000 feathers. They whirled around him, and when they disappeared, it was night and the stadium was in ruins. He looked around and saw that he wasn't alone, but then he realized that the Hyuga clan was watching him. They were crowded into the stands, and everyone had a lifeless expression on their faces. He stood in the center of the ring by himself and started to be judged by them. When I asked, what is going on here? Someone answer me, nobody did. Then one of the men approached him. Neji exclaimed, Father, but he fell back after a kunai pierced his heart. When he arose once more, Hinata, not his father, was grinning at him. Then he said icily, "What are you doing?" When Hinata said, "I want to fight," she became calm. "Very well, but it is your funeral," he said, but after being hit, he fell back and attempted to use his Byakugan, but he was unable to do so because he appeared to be lacking in chakra. He was watching the fight from the sidelines when he was hit again and fell back. He then jumped away when he noticed Takumi standing there. "This is what you fear, being weak and disposable like your father," Takumi said with a smile. "My father was not weak, he was just born a few minutes too late," Neji yelled. The scene changed to the preliminaries, where Takumi stood between the two Hyugas and watched the battle. "Who are you trying to convince me, are you?" Takumi asked. "And that is why you wanted to humiliate Hinata. You wanted to show you were better than then main branch, show your life is worth something. You were wondering if that had been you on the other end, would someone have saved you? Do you want the truth?" "You don't need me to answer, you already know the answer. It is not an answer your eyes can answer. They don't hold all the answers," Neji said, glancing over at him as he continued to answer the question. Neji questioned, "How am I supposed to know? And that is why you can't beat me, you believe you have nothing to lose, you just don't know what you stand to lose." "What, my pride as a Hyuga?" He smiled and said, "No, something more than that, you have to think beyond yourself, and until you figure it out you will always be weak, you will always disposable," before snapping his fingers and disappearing into the darkness. He then ran to his teammates after hearing them call out to him from the shadows. He noticed that the calls were getting heavier. He finally ran into the light and found himself back at the stadium, standing in front of Takumi, who was grinning, but he wasn't bothered by it as much as he had been. He could hear his teammates encouraging him. "Do you have the answer yet?" "Yes, my friends would have helped me." "And that is why your father died, to save those he loved," Takumi replied. "How can you know that? You don't know my father. But I know you, and you would have done the same thing. Every battle fought should be one thing and one thing only. Preservation, your life. Those you care about are an ideal, anything else you can't give your all. But you should learn something in every battle so you can grow as a person." Neji said coolly, "I should thank you, but now isn't the time." "So are you ready to start the real battle?" Because of Takumi's use of genjutsu, Neji was wary as the two shinobi stood prepared to battle, waiting for the other to initiate contact. He suspected that his release was the only reason he had not been trapped any longer. Neji was attempting to identify this guy's weakness. He was aware that he was proficient in genjutsu, which he had demonstrated several times during this battle and the one against Choji. He also demonstrated some taijutsu abilities when he saved Hinata. He hadn't witnessed him employ ninjutsu, but that didn't really help because he was more of a close combat shinobi himself. Neji launched his attack in the hopes that his taijutsu abilities would be sufficient to prevail in this battle. He was certain that he would be alright if he could stay away from his genjutsu. The issue was that, from what he could see, his genjutsu execution was perfect. He had never had to battle someone with such skill and power before, and his illusion was so strong that you never knew when you were trapped. He then realized that Takumi's weakness was his genjutsu. Despite his skill with them, they required a lot of chakra to keep that level of control. He always ended battles quickly because he lacked the stamina to fight for extended periods of time and couldn't cast another genjutsu like that first one. Takumi's taijutsu was comparable to Lee's, and like Lee, he appeared to have a decent understanding of his own abilities, but defeating him remained a challenge. Takumi avoided the attack and made Neji defend instead of attempting to stop it, knowing that it would be ineffective. However, he was growing too exhausted to endure this degree of fighting for much longer. He exploded into feathers again after Neji hit him in the chest. "Shit," yelled Neji. The feathers flew at Neji like missiles as he said, "Feather shuriken jutsu," and one of them sliced his face like a kunai. Neji said, 8 trigrams palm rotation, blocking the remaining feathers. Takumi said, grinning, "That's it, I'm done," while seated beneath a tree. Even though he won the match, Neji realized that he had truly lost it when he was caught in Takumi's genjutsu, even though he could see that his chakra was almost depleted. Neji approached his opponent and extended his hand. Takumi said, "So you have realized that I really won this," keeping Neji alone. "Why did you break the genjutsu?" As Takumi stated, there are some things more important than victory. Besides, that is not why we are here at his exam. Neji became perplexed. "Troublesome," he said, looking down at the battlefield, knowing that if he prevailed, he would have to face Neji in the next round. "What a drag if I do win this fight, that just means I am going to have to fight even more," he said to Takumi, who was standing next to him. The next battle was between Shikamaru and Tamari. He grinned and remarked, "That is why I am glad I lost." Naruto yelled, "Is that a new battle tactic? It is so genius, Fanlady will never see it coming," as he patted him on the back and he fell over the rail, landing on the ground and staring up at the sky. He watched the clouds and thought, Why can't I be a cloud and just coast through the sky with no care in the world? She is so troublesome. Maybe I should just quit. Who needs to be a chunin? It's just more dangerous missions, longer mission, more troublesome missions. Tamari yelled angrily, are you going to fight me or should I just beat the hell out of you? Without mentioning anyone, he questioned, are all women this troublesome? What did you say? She yelled as she attempted to use her fan to smash Shikamaru, who was about 5 feet up against the wall when the dust settled. This really infuriated Tamari, so she swung her fan in the direction of the strong winds, but Shikamaru disappeared and was now hiding behind a tree. Shikamaru thought to himself, what a troublesome woman, I guess I have no choice but to fight, and he took a seat to begin strategizing his moves. Naruto questioned, why isn't he fighting? He isn't the type just to fight, he needs to outthink his opponent, Takumi stated. I outthink my opponents, she grinned. Hotaru said, no, that would involve thinking, not one of your strongest skills, which made Naruto sulk. Shikamaru had caught Tamari in his jutsu after a protracted and dull battle in which he did not do much, and he gave up, saying it was all too much trouble. Hotaru grabbed hold of Shikamaru as he returned to the balcony where everyone was waiting. However, he noticed something that the others did not. A man was observing from behind the crow. This made him glance at Naruto before turning back to the boy, who appeared to be around their age and was not wearing a headband. He recalled Naruto mentioning Aoni-sama, but he never imagined that it would be a real brother and a twin at that. Beyond that, though, he seemed familiar, as if he had seen him before. Shikamaru briefly turned his head to see both of his rivals on the ground, but the boy was gone when he turned back. Hotaru was still dangling on Shikamaru's arm when he asked, have you ever seen Naruto's brother? No, why? The woman inquired. I think he is here, Shikamaru stated. All of them returned their focus to the battle that Sareri appeared to be leading. Gaara eventually encased himself in a giant sand shell that seemed to withstand everything she did and always retaliated because her speed seemed too great. She charged the shell, tearing right through it as soon as the sound of 1,000 birds filled the air. Gaara touched his chest and said, what is this? It's blood, he told himself. He yelled at the top of his lungs, blood, it's my blood, and everyone, including Sareri, appeared to be alarmed. Instead of pain, his voice was filled with lust. Lust for the blood of the one who spilled his. Before long, everyone in the stadium began to feel drowsy. Takumi prevented any of the genin on the balcony from being overpowered by the genjutsu. Naruto mutely remarked, so this is why we were sent here. Shikamaru asked, what are you talking about? But she didn't respond. Instead, she watched as Sareri followed Kankuro and Tamari as they ran off after picking up Gaara. Takumi, you stay and help out in the village. Hotaru, we are going to bring Sareri back, Naruto stated. With a bored tone, Shikamaru remarked, as troublesome as this is, I can't let you two go without me. With the help of Naruto's summoning of a small, two-tailed white fox, the three set out after Sareri. Shortly afterward, the small fox turned and called back. We are being followed. Shikamaru inquired, how many are there? When the little fox called back, 8 and they're closing fast. This is bad, we don't have the time or the manpower to deal with them, said Shikamaru. Naruto questioned, what are you suggesting? Shikamaru said, a diversion, one of us stays behind to buy the others time, and everyone else stopped as well. We can't let the fox stay, we need her to lead us to Sareri. You can't, Naruto, you are the only one among us that knows medical jutsu, he calmly stated. Well, I guess that leaves, Shikamaru interrupted Hotaru and said, me. I am the best one for this, my jutsu is designed for stalling. Hotaru remarked, but you just finished fighting, let me stay. Shikamaru said, no, that would be too troublesome, and turned away from the group. I will catch up with you later. Hotaru yelled, Shikamaru, if you don't, I will kill you myself, as they abandoned him. Naruto grinned and remarked, he will be fine because he is Pineapple Head after all. The young fox eventually turned to face them. There is no one following us, it seems he was able to buy some time, but I don't know how much, the fox replied. Sareri caught the Suna shinobi before they could finally catch up with her. She noticed that half of Gaara was covered in sand in the shape of a demon when she looked up, suggesting that things were not going well for her. She called out to him, Gaara-kun, what are you doing? Gaara yelled, I am proving that I am alive, that I have a purpose, madly. She yelled back, and you do this by hurting people? Only the strong are permitted to survive, only those whose hate is stronger than mine can defeat me, Gaara yelled. No, that isn't true, hate isn't what gives you strength, she replied with a grin. I will bear your hate, your pain, that is what I can do for you. No, get out of here, he will kill you. Sareri yelled as Sand Shuriken approached, but a huge ball of fire stopped them. Between the Kunoichi and Gaara, a blonde boy leapt down and said, You can't reach him through just words, he is like me. I know that pain he feels of being alone, being hated for just being. Gaara yelled angrily, what do you think your hate is stronger than mine? No, I don't fight to prove anything, I fight for peace and understanding. You can only hope for peace when you find it within yourself first. That is why I bear no ill will to those who wronged me in the past, Naruto said with a smile. Now you all leave, this is my fight. Naruto remarked, but Oni Sama, I can help you. You have done more than enough for me already, Naruto remarked. Gaara yelled at Naruto and Sareri, no, you all will die, I will kill you all, with a huge sand claw. Hotaru attempted to intervene, but she was unable to do so before Naruto leapt in front of them. Run! Yelled Naruto. Sareri said, but, get out of here, he yelled. Why would you die for them? Naruto grinned and said, because they say me for more than a monster. But Gaara's blood covered the two kunoichi, and they both looked horrified. Standing atop a branch above the two girls, Naruto declared, but I am not dying today. You three get out of here. How did? Sareri asked, looking perplexed. She knew that he wasn't a clone, but he was still standing in front of them. He took out a kunai, and although Gaara's sand attempted to block it, it tore right through it. They all heard, Rasengan, as Naruto smashed the chakra ball in Gaara's back, sending him crashing into a tree. There was a yellow flash, and Naruto was behind Gaara. It became clear to the three that they had no reason to remain. When they had gone, his cool eyes landed on Temari and Kankuro, who were now gray with rings instead of blue. It is time that you both to leave, he said. With the sand cascading from his body, Gaara stood up and yelled, I will not lose to a guy like you, before completely switching to the Shukaku. You still don't understand, Naruto uttered, shaking his head as sand climbed up his body. Shinra Tensei, he said, as the blast's force knocked the Shukaku over and forced the sand away from him. At Konoha, the blast's force was so great that everyone halted their fighting to try to locate its source. Gaara appeared from its head as Shukaku stood up, just as Gaara was about to make the hand gesture. This is the end, Shinra Tensei. Naruto disappeared, pulled out a kunai hand, and threw it at the demon's head. Gaara was then blasted through the sand and hit the ground. Under Naruto's feet, the sand crumbled. Gaara looked horrified and asked, how are you so powerful? Naruto walked closer to Gaara and said, we are more alike than you could possibly imagine, pointing to the seal on his stomach. The difference is that I control the power doesn't control me. Because I don't fight for me, I found something worth dying for, and that is what gives me strength, he said. Naruto turned and saw Temari and Kankuro prepared for battle. Get away from him, he exclaimed. They are will to die for you, or you will to do the same for them? Replied Naruto. Gaara said, Kankuro Temari, that's enough, no more fighting, without rising. Gaara, remember my words, Naruto said before he vanished. Although it was too late to save the Hokage, he knew that there was still one gift he could give to the village that despised him. Geto. Art of Rini Rebirth. He felt all the dead standing outside Konoha. As the dead began to reappear throughout Konoha, nobody knew what to make of it. Kakashi turned to face Aya, who shrugged before her eyes widened in remembrance of something she had heard about the Kasukage's ability to control life and death. The shinobi they had just pulled from the wreckage had just opened his eyes. I heard of someone being able to do this, but I never really thought it was possible, Aya said, adding, it is said he created our island from the sea and can bring people back from the dead, and that man is our Kasuke, but no one has ever seen his face, so if he was here I wouldn't know. Kakashi questioned, are you sure no one has? You don't think that Naruto would know who he is? Replied Aya. Someone had to teach her Fuinjutsu, commented Kakashi. But I haven't seen her since this all started. She left with a small squad after Gaara, replied Aya. Exhausted, Naruto began to fall back, but someone caught him before he hit the ground. Naruto stood as he heard the sound of surprise and joy as their deceased returned to them. A slack voice said, I thought I should bring him in, even though it was quite troublesome. Before awakening his Rinnegan, he swiftly performed a transformation jutsu to restore his eyes to their previous blue state. When Naruto opened them, he discovered a genin in a room full of junin. Looking at the boy in disbelief, Kakashi questioned, how are you still alive? Lucky, I guess. I hope you aren't too disappointed, Naruto declared in jest. Shikamaru exclaimed, wait, you know this kid, as she stared at Naruto's beaming face. Hi, Kakashi responded. His name is Naruto Uzumaki. He went missing 5 years ago. We assumed that he was dead because there was a group of men that admitted killing him. He said, One Eye, I have to get going. I have people to see, ramen to eat, as he dismounted the bed. Shikamaru said, you're just as troublesome as Naruto, with a head shake. He grabbed his clothes and asked, where do you think she gets it from Pineapple Head? As Naruto leapt onto the window ledge, Asuma questioned, "Where are you going?" He grinned and said, "I told you people to see ramen to eat," before leaping out of the window and making his way to the ramen bar. When he heard two voices behind him, he turned to see Hinata and Kiba entering the ramen bar. He had just finished his fourth bowl of ramen. Naruto said, "Hinata-chan, it has been a while," as her face flushed. "Naruto," she said with a startled expression. "So you do remember me," he said with a smile. "Naruto is your name. You look a lot like Naruto. You smell a lot like Naruto," Kiba replied. "I think you are Naruto." "No, last time I checked I was Naruto," he replied. After placing some cash on the counter, Naruto stood up. Kiba smirked and said, "Well then Naruto, why didn't you enter the Chunin exam?" She whispered, "Kiba, perhaps he isn't a shinobi." "Well dog boy, I can show you," he replied, "but first I need to get dressed. I can walk around in a hospital gown, it will draw too much attention." With a quick change of clothes, Naruto says, "Yes, because everyone knows that orange is a lot less conspicuous." Naruto's comment, "Ooh, what a big word, I am surprised you didn't choke on it," made Kiba flush red and Hinata laugh. The remaining 9 rookies, Team 8, and the Arashigakure team are en route to the training ground. As they all gathered around, Kiba confronted Naruto, who was grinning foolishly, saying, "I feel bad about this, so you can pick someone else to fight with you." Kiba angrily remarked, "I don't need any help to wipe the floor with you." "If you say so," shrugged Naruto, Earth style, hidden mole jutsu. "Where did he go?" exclaims Kiba. Naruto appeared, used ninja art, whack, a mole jutsu, and struck Kiba in the head with a stick before disappearing once more. As he struck Akamaru in the head, he exclaimed, "What the hell was that? Fight me like a man." He said, "I would rather fight you like a mole," then materialized behind him, gave him another blow to the head, and vanished again. As Neji called out to Kiba, "You can't beat him." Naruto commented, "He is right dog boy," while he was standing in the crowd. Kiba said, "Why you?" But a kunai flew by his head and he felt another one hit his throat. Calmly, "It's over," Naruto declared. Naruto questioned, "Oni Sama, what are you doing here?" He said, "I came to watch you in the exam," placing the kunai in front of him. Naruto inquired, "Are you going to go back with us?" Naruto said, "No, I have something I need to take care of," as he left. He disappeared and then reappeared next to Orochimaru, who was already confronting 2 shinobi wearing black cloaks and red clouds. Naruto asked the 2 cloaked shinobi, "So is it my enemy's enemy or my friend's enemy?" Orochimaru said, "You know Flying Thunder God Jutsu," glancing at the boy. The response from Naruto was, "Hi," among others. Orochimaru calmly remarked, "How did you find me? You have to place a seal in order to use the jutsu." In a cool tone, Naruto remarked, "I have my sister is very skilled, would you saw? What are you?" Then he recalled that Naruto was putting the seal on his when she attempted to strike him in the back. Orochimaru asked in a horrified tone, "You mean? It's worse than you think and much better than I could have hoped for. You swallowed the seal which about now persistently place on your stomach," he laughed, "so you can't hide from me. And know you are without your jutsu you can't beat me." One of the men in cloak said, "If you want him dead, why did you come here? Why don't you just let us take care of him?" He was much smaller than his partner. "Because there is something that he wants from Orochimaru," the second man said. "Very good, he has some information that I want in fact," said Naruto. Orochimaru shot back, "What makes you think I will tell you anything, boy?" Naruto stated, "Because I don't need you to, I have my ways." A sword popped out of Orochimaru's mouth and stabbed Naruto. Orochimaru grinned and remarked, "Looks like you should have been more careful, boy." Naruto said, "You think this can kill me?" as his wound started to heal. Orochimaru tried to attack him once more, but Naruto disappeared. Rasengan. Orochimaru stared to turn around, but it was too late. The jutsu was smashed into his back, and he flew through trees. In his hand, Naruto shaped another one. Bansho Tenin, Orochimaru said as he was dragged back towards Naruto and struck by a second Rasengan. Blood poured from the Sanins as it felt like the 2 opposing forces were tearing his body apart. "Interesting, very interesting. Now goodbye Orochimaru," Naruto said, placing his hand on Orochimaru's head before taking the Sanin's soul away. The bigger cloaked figure remarked, "This kid is something else. Defeating Orochimaru even in his weakened state is no easy task." The smaller man remarked, "He is the host of the Kyuubi and the Kausukage for nothing." Naruto questioned, "I am impressed Itachi, what will you do now?" His partner said, "We will take you in," preparing to strike. "Kisame, we can't just attack him, that line of attack will get us all killed," Itachi replied with coolness. So what do we suggest? Itachi Mangekyo Sharingan activated Tsukuyomi, which trapped Naruto in a world that Itachi had made. When Naruto said, "Nice try but not good enough," he smiled. Silently, "Shadow clone," Itachi said. Itachi searched for the real Naruto Rasengan, but the clone disappeared. Kisame was able to stop it with his sword, and after it ate the jutsu, Naruto disappeared. When the young Kage yelled, "Shinra Tensai," the two Nin were shot back. They both avoided the weapons as they leapt away from the attack in fire style. Great fireball jutsu, but Itachi was able to block the secondary attack while Kisame was less fortunate. Two kunai were shooting from the flames. "You are good kid, I will give you that," Kisame said. "I can see why you are a Kage, but you still can't beat us." Itachi by himself would have caused trouble, but now he had to battle one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. Naruto calmly remarked, "How would you know I still have a few tricks up my sleeves?" But he knew they were right. "Amaterasu," Itachi said as black flames erupted from one of his eyes and engulfed Naruto. Kisame smiled and said, "You're going to kill the boy Itachi." "No, I am just going to weaken him. If we don't take him seriously he might kill us," Itachi replied quietly. Itachi's face showed a slight, "He's gone." "You mean he's dead?" "No, he escaped." "He used another shadow clone?" "No, that was the real Naruto. He was right when he said he had a few more tricks up his sleeve. Now it will only get harder to catch him because he will get stronger," Itachi said with a smile. "Scary thought," smiled Kisame. "Yes, considering he didn't use the Kyuubi in this battle," Itachi replied. "Raikage. Sensei, what can I do for you?" Naruto asked, sitting behind his desk in his village, but he wasn't by himself. The Raikage said, "I came to ask what you know about the Akatsuki." Naruto turned to one of his former senseis and said, "Just about everything, but there are a few things or guesses at the moment, but I am sure that it is right." "And how did you come to possess this knowledge?" "I got it from Orochimaru, so everything he knew I know," Naruto replied with a grin. When Raikage said, "So one of the Sanins is dead?" "Yes, but I can't take all the credit, he had been weakened considerably by the former Hokage. So we should go and conquer Konoha while they are weak." "No, we have bigger problems to deal with at the moment. We need to find Yugito." "Sensei, they are after Jinchuriki." "So what do you suggest?" "I will leave it to you, Sensei, but if it were me I would start by gathering the Jinchuriki so we can ensure the Akatsuki can't get them," Naruto replied. "Since we already have 3 there is no big rush. We need to train a team to track, collect and protect the Jinchuriki." "I think we can have a couple teams in place in 3 years' time," Raikage stated. Naruto said, "I will send you 3 young shinobi for this mission," as he turned to face the window. "I hope the search for the new Hokage goes well," Naruto said with a smile as the shinobi from Arashigakure bid the Konoha shinobi farewell. And Sareri said, "Naruto, can I ask you something before you go?" She smiled as she asked, "What is it, Sareri? Do you know where Naruto went?" Kiba was still not fond of his nickname and was muttering about it to himself. "No, I have spoken to him since he beat Dogboy," she said with a smile. Following their respective farewells, the Arashigakure shinobi began their arduous journey home. "Takuma, Hotaru, Naruto the Kausukage has sent me to bring you to his office. You have been given a mission," the Anbu member said, glancing at the 3 young shinobi, who was waiting for them when they arrived. "But they just returned," Aya responded. "Isn't there someone else he can send?" "No, these 3 are the ones he wants for this mission," the Anbu stated. The 3 shinobi entered the office without a fight, and to everyone's surprise except Naruto, Naruto was seated at the desk and staring at them. "I would like to introduce you to your new teammates," Naruto said as the 3 shinobi appeared. "Samui, Karui, and Omoi. Be careful, it's genjutsu and it is too powerful to complete dispel," one of the masked shinobi who appeared 3 years later near a lake encircled by dense fog said, surveying the area. Another masked shinobi said warily, "Let's hurry and find this thing because if we don't, Raikage Sama's rage could bring an end to the world." A third mask wearing shinobi said, "Shut up, Yubaka, he will not end the world," and she struck the second man over the head for his foolishness. The first shinobi said in a bored tone, "Well, that may be true, but if we fail, they won't be happy with us." "How much time do you think you will need to seal it away?" she asked. 20 minutes, unless one of you want to become a Jinchuriki," the team's smallest member said, looking around but finding no volunteers. 4 days ago it seems that someone has found the Kyodai game and sealed it away, a man with long white hair said calmly to a young woman in her 50s who was sitting on a windowsill in Konoha. The woman said, "Do we know who it was?" "No, but I don't think it was the Akatsuki," he replied. She began, "If it wasn't them then," before being interrupted. Shizune bowed and said, I apologize, Tsunade. Sama. I didn't realize you were hearing Jiraiya, Sama. It is fine. What is it that you need? She blurted out, the Akatsuki are attacking Suna. She commanded, send Kakashi's team. Are you sure it wasn't them who got the Kyodai game? Hi, that could be why they have started trying to gather the Jinchuriki before someone else does, Jiraiya replied. One of the 6 people standing outside Suna said, we should wait until the fighting dies down, and he took a seat on a boulder that protruded from the sand. Another of them remarked, but we all can't just stay here, we still 4 more to track down. The smallest member of the group handed over the scroll, and they all nodded before the 4 disappeared. Takumi and I will take care of this one, you 3 go find Fu and Hotaru take this one back to Arashigakure, he said. So do you think we will be able to deal with these 2 Akatsuki members? Takumi inquired. We just need to get Gara-kun away from them, and you never know, he might kill them, Naruto said, taking off her mask. We don't have to beat them. It was not long before the noise subsided. 2 figures were approaching them. One was sliding along the ground, and the other was mounted on a gigantic bird. Naruto said, the party is about to start. As she put on her mask, they moved ahead of the 2 Akatsuki members who were prepared to engage in combat. Although Takumi's face was visible to Naruto, she knew he was grinning as usual. It is a shame, I thought they would have at least sent someone worthwhile, she said. He was grinning as they confronted 2 S-class criminals. Sasori stated, I will deal with these 2. No, I am afraid that won't work, but if you hand over Gara we will let you live, Takumi smiled. My man, they don't look like Suna Anbu, Deidara told Sasori. It doesn't matter who they are, they will die soon anyway, Sasori stated. Deidara began to fly away after saying, very well, I will leave them to you, but his bird crashed to the ground, turning into worthless clay. After Deidara's clay bird was destroyed by Naruto, Sasori went to attack him. But all of a sudden, feathers were all around him. Sasori said, Genjutsu, as he looked around and realized he was by himself. As Naruto calmly approached Deidara, he said, hand him over, you can win, you see I put a thunder seal on this area so your jutsu are useless, they will lose their charge the second you try and your friend is trapped in a genjutsu very few can break out of. She turned to see Kankuro running in their direction and exclaimed, how the hell are you? Shit, she muttered to herself. She didn't want to do this, but they gave her no other option, so she took out a kunai and threw it to the ground. A man in cage robes then appeared in front of them. His gaze first landed on Gara before shifting to the 2 Akatsuki members. I should kill you both right now, Naruto said coolly. He then turned to face Sasori, who was crushed to death at the bottom of the crater he was standing in. Do you know why the Yondaime was the most feared Hokage? He then asked Deidara. His response was, the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Naruto threw a kunai, which Deidara avoided, but it didn't matter because Naruto caught it as it passed Deidara's head. Good. Bye, Naruto said as Deidara turned his head and the last thing he saw was a ball hitting his face. You would know that seeing how you are from Iwa, but you were too young to have seen it for yourself, so let me show you, Naruto said. You're the guy that defeated Gara 3 years ago, Kankuro said, stopping on the opposite side of the creator Naruto had created and pointing at Naruto. He picked Gara up and threw him over his shoulder, saying, yes, and I am much stronger than I was back then too, so it would be wise for you to turn back. Naruto and Takumi approached him and took hold of his arm. I won't let you get away that easily, Kankuro said, calling forth 3 puppets. However, he and his puppets were blasted back before he could do much more. They were all gone before he could stand again. Aya was waiting for him when he returned to his office. Take Gara to the hospital, he instructed Naruto, who complied. He turned to face Aya and waited for her to say something. Naruto. Sama, they have brought Namakuji, said Aya. Naruto remarked, who? I thought that the team was still out. Calmly, ni. Sama, she said. Naruto sat at his desk and remarked, so there are only 2 left when they return. Aya inquired, what about the Kyuubi? After dismissing her remark, Naruto said, don't worry, that has been taken care of already, he said, rising from his chair once more and leaving through the door, come and get me when everyone from the team arrives, I will be training. The bodies of the Akatsuki members were brought into the village after Kakashi's team reached Suna too late. Kakashi asked, looking around in anticipation of the cage, you guys killed them? Sakura inquired, where is Gara? Sama. Kankuro yelled, he was kidnapped. But, Kakashi gave the 2 deceased Akatsuki a look. Kankuro began, it wasn't them. The ones who killed them took him. It was the same guy who defeated Gara before his final words faded. Sareri's eyes widened. She knew who had taken Gara, but why was it so clear that he wasn't employed by the Akatsuki? Naruto would have been aware of this. she simply didn't know what was happening. Kiba assuredly said, "Don't worry, we'll help you find Gaara." "But we don't know where to start," Konkuro pointed to the wall with a punch. "I am aware of who took him," Sareri said quietly, "and Naruto was the one who beat him back." "Naruto defeat Gaara?" exclaimed Kakashi, startled. "Hi," she murmured in response. "So that means we have to go to Arashigakure. Now the only problem is, where is Arashigakure?" Kakashi didn't ask anyone in particular. "We will head back to Konoha and see how Tsunade Haim wants to move forward with this." When the rest of the recovery team showed up a few days later, a disgruntled woman with orange eyes and mist green hair said, "I demand to see who is responsible for me being dragged here," with great rage. They followed instructions and Aya went to retrieve Naruto, who had been motionless for the past day and a half. "I will go get him," Aya said. "Take her to Kausukage's office." Aya remarked, "Naruto Sama," another one just arrived, and Naruto disappeared into his office just before someone knocked on the door. He yelled, "Enter," from his chair. "I am glad to see you here safe and sound," the woman said, glaring at Naruto, who was grinning broadly at her as the door opened. "What is going on here? I was dragged here against my will. Start explaining or I will kill you," she said to him. Naruto stood up and approached her, saying, "Look, Fu-chan, I am a man of power, and with these power comes a certain responsibility. You understand that, right?" "So what does this have to do with me?" Fu responded. Naruto went on to say, "I have been gathering all of the Jinchuriki." "Why, so you can make us fight for you?" "No, not at all. I have brought you here to protect you, and in do so I will protect my people." With a suspicious look on her face, she asked, "How does protecting us protect your people?" Naruto turned away and walked to the window, looking out. "You see, the Akatsuki are after the Biju, and what they will do if they get their power is something that I don't want to think about," he said. Fu inquired, "So how many are here?" He said, 7, and I know where the last 2 are," as he peered out the window. She said icily, "So what, do you have them locked up somewhere?" "Why would I do something like that?" Coldly, "Because we are monsters," she stated. "No, that's not true, you are just the jailer for one," he acknowledged, grinning at her. "Well, if there is anything you need, don't be afraid to ask. Remember, you are a guest here." "But excuse me, there are a few things I need to take care of," she said, blushing slightly because she had never experienced such kindness from anyone before. She said, "Hi, Kausukage Sama," with a slight bow. "Please, call me Naruto," he offered with a smile. "Naruto, when will I get to meet the others?" "When they all arrive," he offered, grinning. As soon as the door closed, he made the decision to go see Gaara in the hospital. He was shocked to find Gaara sitting upright and staring at Naruto while Naruto was still soundly asleep in a chair next to his bed. With a voice devoid of emotion, Gaara questioned, "Why am I here?" "You are here under my protection. I deemed your security in Suna to be desired," Naruto replied with a grin. "But I have heard good things about you. The people of the Suna love you for everything that you have done for them." "I would have never imagined I was fighting a future Kage when I fought you," Gaara said with a smile. "Future, I was the Kausukage when we fought," he said with a grin. "I created this place for people who had nowhere else to go, and they are the reason that I do what I do." Gaara turned to face the window and remarked, "Naruto, you are a strange one." "I hear that one a lot," he remarked with a laugh, and Naruto awoke to find Gaara awake. "Gaara. Kun, you're awake," she informed me with a smile. He turned to face her and nodded. Naruto declared, "Naruto Killer B is in charge while I'm away." Naruto said, "Hi Oni Sama," as Naruto turned to go. "Tsunade Haim, all of the Jinchuriki are gone, but 2 from what I gathered," said Kakashi as he entered Tsunade's office. "Where are they?" "Iwa," he uttered somberly. A fresh voice said, "We could get them at the source. I think I have located Arashigakure," and they looked over at Jiraiya. Tsunade inquired, "Where is it?" "The waters to the north, west of Kumogakure," he announced with a smile. Naruto stood close to Iwagakure, aware that he needed to move quickly to return them to Arashigakure before the Akatsuki showed up, which he knew would happen soon. He assumed they would be in the village itself, so he began searching the nearby towns and villages until he happened upon them. He told them what he was doing, and although they were initially dubious, they eventually agreed to go with him. He instructed them to rest when they got back to Arashigakure so they could meet the others the following day. Naruto Sama, all but the Kyuubi, and is present. I don't know where that one is, Aya said as he appeared in his office the following morning as Naruto sat as usual, looking out over the sea. After saying, "It is fine, I will take it from here," he stood up. Unable to resist, she asked, "Sir, who is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki?" He smiled and said, "I thought that was obvious," to her bewildered expression. "That would be me," he said, leaving his office. 7 people were waiting when he entered the room. When Fu said, "There are still 2 missing," "No," he replied, removing a scroll that read, "This is the Kyodai game." He put the scroll down and noted that the last Jinchuriki is me Naruto Uzumaki. Facing him with suspicion, Fu said, "So you are the Kyuubi, how did you become a Kage?" Naruto said, "I am not the only Kage in the room," as he looked at Gaara. "How can you fight for them when they made you what you were and hate you for it?" Fu responded. "I don't fight for those who hate me, I fight for those who are important to me," replied Naruto. Recalling the words Naruto had spoken to him and the principles he lived by, Gaara remarked, "You can only be truly strong when you have something to fight for." The majority of the others murmured their agreement with Fu's statement, "I fight for myself," adding icily, "I didn't get coddled growing up like you two." "We weren't coddled, we were like you all at one point," Naruto replied, "but if you think you are strong, prove it." She asked icily, "How do you want me to do that?" "Fight me, and if you are truly strong you will do it without the aid of the Biju sealed within you," Naruto said with a smile. She laughed and remarked, "Yeah, none of us here can go against the Kyuubi." Naruto grinned and remarked, "I don't need his power to defeat you." Her words, "Fine, I will make you eat those words," came as she stood up. "Follow me," he said, standing up and guiding them to a location with a view of the sea. The sky was gray and the water was hostile. Naruto pointed to the water and asked, "So where are we going to fight? How do you suggest we fight there?" "You can't win, you shouldn't have taken the challenge," Gaara said in an emotionless tone as he turned to face Fu. Fu smiled and said, "If he doesn't use the Kyuubi, I can kill him." "He can't be killed, those who see him fight call him the Kamikage," Yugito stated. In Chibaku Tensei, a huge ball formed from the land beneath the water in front of them. In Shinra Tensei, the ball flattened out everyone, but Yugito and Killer B were taken aback by the show of strength. It sounded nervous when Fu said, "You said you weren't going to use the Kyuubi." "I haven't, this is my power, and let me tell you, you haven't seen anything yet. I will show you the power you can gain when you find something worth fighting for, something that you are willing to die for," said Naruto. They all walked onto the platform that Gaara created out of his sand. All of them were taken to the battlefield that Naruto had constructed. However, the cheers of Kausukage filled the air as the villages gathered on the island watched the 7 shinobi make their way to the battlefield. They all entered the battle arena after leaving the sand. "If that is all you have, this will be over soon, water style. Water dragon jutsu," she said, aiming a kick at his head at the beginning of the battle, and he didn't even try to dodge it. A dragon emerged from the water, followed by 2, 3, and 4 more, until 10 dragons surrounded the arena. She said, "I didn't even see him make a hand sign," as she looked into his eyes, which were no longer blue, gray with rings, in terrified terror. She was able to avoid a few of the 10 dragons that descended upon her, but there were too many. "This is the power of my passion, my desire to protect those dear to me, and until you find something to stand for you will fall for anything," she said. Shinra Tensei, Fu started to change, and after being slammed to the ground, she was able to move. Cage style. Palm of sealing fate, his hand started to glow. He vanished in an instant, his hand resting on her chest as the demonic energy subsided. He quickly realized where his hand was and withdrew it. She looked up at the cage and asked, "What was that?" He replied, smiling, "A fuinjutsu that forcibly suppresses Biju chakra," reaching down to take her hand. When he helped her up, she blushed and said, "Tonight, we are all going to the finest restaurant in Arashigakure." Arashigakure was approached by Kakashi and a small platoon of shinobi, Guy and his team, and the rookie 9, all of whom were chunin or higher. They needed someone who could handle the choppy waters. They were fortunate to find someone who would and could assist them. The waters grew increasingly dangerous as they ventured farther out. If the journey was this challenging, Kakashi couldn't help but wonder what problems were in store for them. "This is troublesome. Outside of the docks there is only one way into the village," Shikamaru remarked, "and I am sure that they already know that we are here." They arrived at the island and anchored in a heavily forested area rather than the village. Sakura questioned, "What makes you say that?" Shikamaru gestured toward a group of shinobi Aya who were in charge. She turned to face Kakashi and asked, "What can we do to help you?" Calmly, "I think I know why we are here," Kakashi said. "Well, there could be many reasons, but I am just going to assume you missed me," she replied quietly. With equal coolness, Kakashi questioned, "What about Gaara? Is that the reason he is here?" "I don't know what you are talking about," she said with a grin, "but if you are here looking for trouble I would recommend that you just turn and leave now. The Kausukage doesn't take well to trespassers. Allow us to talk to the Kausukage so we clear up this misunderstanding then," Kakashi responded. After saying, "He is busy," but I am sure I can find someone to talk to you in his place." He turned and started to walk toward the village. People were staring and whispering to each other as they moved through the village, not used to seeing anyone other than Kumo Shinobi due to the difficulty of getting there. "I cannot allow of you to enter this room, and I cannot allow you to enter with weapons. Little good they would do you," Aya said, turning to face the 14 shinobi as the Konoha shinobi were led into a large building. Everyone turned to Shikamaru as Kakashi and Guy both stepped forward and handed over their weapons. "Man, what a drag," he remarked while transferring his weapons to the recipient. The three then entered a large room with a very large man sitting behind a raised podium. It appeared to have 3 seats on either side, much lower, and 2 more seats at the same leave, all of which were filled. 3 shinobi, Naruto, Hotaru, and Takumi, were recognized by the Konoha shinobi, but the other 4 wore Kumo Hite.8. With his gaze fixed on Kakashi, the largest man asked, "What is your business here?" "We're here to find out more about Gaara because someone reported seeing him abducted by a shinobi from this village." "Who is this particular shinobi?" the man inquired. "Naruto Uzumaki," replied Kakashi. "Kakashi Hitaki, you are accusing the Kausukage of kidnapping. What evidence do you have that we are detaining him against his will?" Kakashi said, Sama, we have a witness to the event," with a subtle change in tone. "Are you familiar with him?" Shikamaru inquired in a disinterested manner. "He is the Raikage," replied Kakashi. "How do you know he wasn't taken by an Akatsuki member?" Kakashi calmly remarked, "Because the team sent to collect him was killed." One Eye. "San, I ask that you not look any further into this matter and just leave," Naruto said with a smile. "Allow us to stay here tonight, and we will leave in the morning," Kakashi stated. "Very well," he said, nodding to the 6 shinobi seated around the table, "but do I make myself clear that if you try anything while you are here, they will stop you at all costs, even if it means killing you all?" Kakashi said, "Hi," bowed, and turned to go. "What are we aware of?" Guy inquired. "Gaara is here, he never denied it, but he has a point. We don't know if it is against his will," Shikamaru said, sounding bored. "It is all too troublesome." Kakashi asked softly as they reassembled outside the room, "Do you have a plan?" Shikamaru replied, "No, I don't see anyone crossing 2 cages for us. I know I wouldn't." An Anbu appeared next to Naruto, whispering in his ear as he was eating with the other 6 Jinchuriki. "Bring them to me," a smiling Naruto said. The Anbu said, "Hi," and then disappeared. "What was the purpose of that?" Gaara inquired. "You have some guest Gaara," Naruto smiled. "They came all this way to see you so I could refuse them." "Aren't you worried that might try something?" Fu responded. "No, both Gaara and I are cages, then the Raikage is not that far, then my Anbu my elite guard, Raikage's elite guard, then all the other shinobi on this island," Naruto replied casually. After a few minutes, the 14 Konoha shinobi were standing in front of Naruto when they were startled to see Gaara and 5 strangers sitting there with a meal in front of them. "Is there something I can do for Konoha's finest?" Naruto inquired. Calmly, Kakashi said, "You can begin by explaining to us why Gaara-sama is here." Naruto grinned and remarked, "I wish I could. It's an S-class secret." Kiba asked, glancing between the 5 people he didn't know, "Who are all of them?" "I can't tell you that either," Naruto continued to smile. Shikamaru looked at each of them and remarked, "I am assuming they're the reason Gaara is here. Why don't you all get something to eat now that you have seen Gaara is alive, and well, you can deliver this welcome news back to Sanagakure." "What if we insisted that Gaara comes back with us?" Kiba responded. "I would have to decline, and if you didn't take the hint, well, I will have you arrested and interrogated, and in that interrogation I would have you spilling your deepest dark secrets," he said before leaning back in his chair and going on. "Even though I probably know everything of value that you do, it is the principle of the thing." Kakashi's question was, "Is that a threat?" Waving for the waiter to bring him another bowl of ramen, Naruto said, "If you want to call it that, I call it a promise on condition. So sit and eat your fill, because you have a long trip ahead of you tomorrow." "Oni. Sama, is something wrong?" Naruto asked Naruto as he stood in his office that evening and gazed out the window. "The war is coming a lot sooner than planned. How close is the chamber to being ready?" Her response was, "A couple more days, put a rush on it," he said, continuing to gaze at the serene sea outside the window. "Hi," she said before disappearing. Black cloaks with red clouds were worn by a man in an orange mask. A man with spiky orange hair and piercings all over his face, and a woman with short blue hair. Looking toward the island, the man wearing the orange mask stated, "If we want any chance of getting the rest, we will have to the Kyuubi first." "So I take it you think I should be the one to go and bring him down?" asked the orange-haired man. The man in the mask said, "If that is the best chance for us to capture him," before disappearing. The man said, Conan, we attack in the morning. The woman asked anxiously, is it necessary for you to go personally? He killed Orochimaru Sasori and Deidara already. He fought Itachi and Kisame after he killed Orochimaru. He is by far the most powerful of our enemy, Pain stated, but everyone has a weakness, we just have to find his. A cool voice said, I can tell you what his weakness is, emerging from the shadows to reveal a hooded figure. You are Orochimaru's right-hand man Kabuto, Pain said, observing the new arrival with a detached expression as the man lowered his hood to reveal his face. Kabuto smiled and said, I am honored that you know who I am. I keep tabs on all of my enemy, Pain answered back. Conan glared at the young man in front of her and said, tell me why I shouldn't kill you. The response from Kabuto was, because we want the same thing but for different reasons. Pain said, so what do you suggest? As the sun started to rise, Naruto was outside staring toward Konoha when he sensed someone behind him saying, Takumi, make sure everyone moves to the safe house and don't let the Konoha shinobi leave just yet. According to Takumi, I didn't think it was ready, she smiled. It's not, but it will have to do for now, Naruto stated calmly. He found the Konoha shinobi first, then said, hi, leaving the Kausukage to his thoughts. Ensuring our departure? Ino inquired rather rudely. No, I am here telling you that you can't leave, we are in a level 5 lockdown, so please follow me, he said, disregarding the venom in Ino's voice. Before long, everyone in the village, aside from Naruto, was in a sizable underground cavern that was surrounded by seals. Where is Naruto? Looking around, Sareri asked. Hotaru remarked, he is doing his duty, as he stood close to the Konoha shinobi. His obligation? Shikamaru said it again. Gaara stood watching her, and Naruko responded, as Kausukage, it is his duty to protect the citizens of Arashigakure. If he isn't willing to do something, how can he ask someone else to do it? Naruko said, recognizing the pain in her voice. So, while he battles by himself, we simply wait here until the threat has passed, Sareri yelled. There is nothing we can do. We would only obstruct him. Sareri was about to respond when Naruko yelled back, but Gaara interrupted. He stated, the best thing we can do is as he says, regardless of personal feelings, as he glanced between the girls with emotionless eyes. When two individuals appeared, Naruto stood and grinned. So you guys aren't playing around, I see, he said. They both had orange hair and had piercings covering their faces. Where's your backup? Pain asked, scanning the area but failing to spot anyone. I don't need any, announced Naruto calmly. As four more men suddenly showed up, Pain remarked, confident aren't we? But if you want to ensure that none of your subject hand yourself over along with all of the Jinchuriki. I can't do that. I can't dome this world to destruction. I am not fighting for destruction but peace. How do you calculate? People can only understand each other there when they can understand another's pain. I too fight for peace, but what you are talking about is not peace, it's fear. How would you suggest achieving peace? Naruto replied, before you can find peace, you must first find inner peace. When Naruto charged into battle, he was blasted back, and he landed on his feet. It is a shame you can see things my way. You could have made things a lot easier by helping me instead of standing in my way, Pain said. So this will be more difficult than I thought, Naruto said, with a grin on his face. He then threw 6 kunai, one at each of his opponents, and in a flash, he appeared and attacked each of them. Pain said, impressive, it is not hard to see why you are the leader of this land, as he stood up. Naruto sprang aside to avoid a giant rhino's attack, but he could sense another one coming from behind him, Shinra Tensei, and everyone in the area blasted away from him. Observing Naruto's Rinnegan, Pain remarked, interesting, that is why you knew the weakness in my jutsu. Naruto's jutsu, Water Style, Water Dragon Jutsu, came crashing down on the 6 Pains, but he didn't use the Shinra Tensei as he had been expecting. Instead, one of them absorbed the jutsu, so they all did different things. Naruto thought to himself that he needed to know each of their abilities before it was too late, and when he saw one standing behind the others, he took out a kunai and hurled it at the one who attempted to hide, but the kunai was repelled, so he repeated the move and appeared in front of him, a Rasengan ready to attack, but another Pains jumped in between them, taking the hit instead. Two invisible forces collided in Shinra Tensei, destroying everyone in their path. They could feel the earth trembling around them in the cavern, and they couldn't help but wonder what was going on. Kakashi was studying the seals scattered throughout the room, Sareri was pacing back and forth with an anxious expression, and Naruko was standing against a wall with her head lowered and her long hair blocking her face from view. Fu kept her eyes on the door, while Gaara simply watched Naruko. Hinata was constantly shifting her weight from one foot to the next. Kakashi asked himself, what is he doing? And then stared up at the ceiling, seemingly able to see the battle going on above them. Naruto faced the 6 pains once more, and although he had figured out all of their abilities, the fact that he now knew what he was up against did not make it any less of a challenge. He knew that each of the 6 could see whatever the other 6 could see, and that he would have to fight each of them individually if he wanted the best chance of winning. Shadow Clone Jutsu, emerged 5 more Narutos. When one of the pains said, "You are full of tricks, aren't you?" While the real Naruto faced the pain, who was capable of using the Shinra Tensei, water style, Water Dragon Jutsu, a dragon emerged from the sea and charged at Pain. "I have a few more up my sleeves," Naruto said. He heard the sound of 1,000 birds and turned just in time to see Naruto holding electricity in his hand. Chidori, he dodged, but he was the intended target. He went straight for the one that could bring back the fallen Pain. "I grow tired of the same old tricks," he said as he caused the dragon to explode off his head, causing water to pour down on them all. "Now when I take one of you bastards down you will stay down," Naruto laughed. "It's time I stop showing you others jutsu, it's time that I show you one of my own creation. Consider yourself lucky you were the first to see it." When he heard a high-pitched screech, he turned to see Naruto holding what appeared to be a Rasengan but with noticeable differences. Wind style. Rasen Shuriken. One of the other pains jumped between them, but when he saw that Naruto was still grinning, the target he had been aiming for was thrown aside. Naruto had formed 2 Rasengans and charged after destroying the pain that could absorb chakra. He was blasted back and vanished in a puff of smoke after that. Naruto was blasted backwards when 2 of the pains were struck and consumed by the attack. Wincing, Naruto stood up and faced the final 2 pains. "That is an impressive jutsu, but you should have only used it if you were sure that you could have taken me out with it. Now your right arm is useless," Pain stated. Naruto grinned and remarked, "Well, a small price to pay to take out 4 of you." Pain pulled out a black rod and hurled it at Naruto, striking him in the chest. "But you have lost because of your mistake," he said, adding, "Don't worry, I don't want you dead yet." Naruto disappeared, only to reappear elsewhere undamaged, saying, "You are truly something else, but you are running low on chakra." "So are you," replied Naruto, "but the difference between me and you is that I still have the Kyuubi's chakra inside of me. What do you have?" Although he had a clear idea of what he was up against, Pain scowled as he realized he was not going to win this battle. He needed to retreat, but would he just let him? Shinra Tensei, the second Pain, charged Naruto, calling forth 7 beasts at once, but they were all blasted back. "You can thank my father for this jutsu," Naruto said, hurling a kunai that materialized in a flash before the creature. Calling 1, Contact Seal, before the creatures disappeared, leaving the Pain defenseless. He looked around, but the other one had fed. Naruto killed him because he felt that by attempting to glean information from Pain, he would succeed. Then he swiftly took the 5 vanquished Pain's piercings off. They were wondering how the battle had turned out, and everything had seemed to settle down. No one responded to the question, "Should we go and check and see if it is over?" At that moment, a man who appeared tired but otherwise unharmed appeared. The last thing he heard were a series of indistinguishable cries before everything returned to normal. "Everything is fine, Naruto. There are 5 corpses I would like you to examine," he said, breathing more forcefully than any of them had ever seen him. His legs gave out from under him. When Hinata used her Byakugan, everyone rushed to him and saw that he was still alive but had very little chakra left. The village appeared to be in near ruin, and Killer Bee picked up the Kausukage and carried him up to the hospital, or what was left of the hospital. Kiba looked around and remarked, "It looks like there was a war fought up here." Gazing around the village, Kakashi questioned, "How does he not have a scratch on him and the village looks like this?" Then he noticed a pile of 5 corpses with the piercings. Naruto asked Takumi, "Can you help get these to the hospital?" But before he could respond, the bodies were thrown into the air by the sand. "Thank you, Gaara-kun," she said softly. Sakura stepped forward and said, "I can help," adding, "I am becoming a medical shinobi, so I should be able to help out a little." "Thank you, Sakura-chan," she smiled. After picking up one of the rods, Shikamaru turned to face the bodies floating next to him. Kakashi questioned, "What is it, Shikamaru? It's all so troublesome. Usually the Akatsuki work in twos, right?" he replied. "Yes," said Kakashi. "The first time they sent someone after Gaara they only sent 2 and from what we heard only 1 fought him," Shikamaru went on. "So why would they send 5 and 5 that share so many characteristics?" Kakashi asked, letting Shikamaru continue even though he believed he knew where he was headed. Kakashi mentioned, "Unless they didn't send 5, while glancing at the rods. I think they sent 1. But then if this was one guy that means someone had to be pulling the strings, and was this one here or is he somewhere else? And the biggest question is, Why send someone so powerful after Gaara if they could have sent a two-man cell for him since he was defeated by one already? This one wasn't sent for Gaara, Kakashi stated, he was sent for to deal with Naruto. This is really troublesome, Shikamaru remarked, massaging his noise bridge. 3 Kunichi, Sareri, Hinata, and Fu followed Killer B as he placed Naruto in a bed in a room that was still intact, which was rare. Hinata feared that a fight would break out between Fu and Sareri as they continued to exchange sour glances. Fu questioned, "What are you two Konoha Kunichi doing here anyway?" Her words were laced with venom. Sareri said, "We could ask you the same thing," with equal scathing. When Takumi smiled at them, they stopped arguing. "Ladies, I hope you don't start fighting at Naruto. Sama's sick dead, because if you do I will have to kill the pair of you," she said. Naruto and Sakura spent the next 24 hours examining the corpses and the rods that were inside of them. They were only able to determine that the rods were amides of chakras. However, with all the seals that had been put on them, it was nearly impossible to read their minds. Not even Naruto could break them all. Gaara greeted her as she was leaving the hospital after she finally made the decision to take a break and go for a walk to help her decompress. "Can I join you?" he asked. She smiled as she said, "Yes, I would like that." Frustrated, she said, "Something just doesn't add up," and they both left the village. Gaara questioned, "What doesn't? I don't know, there is just something not right. They have to know that all of the Jinchuriki are here, so why only send one member? Why not send them all?" Naruto turned to see a woman with gray eyes and blue hair wearing a black cloak with red clouds. "It might be they weren't after all of them right now," the new voice said. "Gaara-kun, run," commanded Naruto. "No," said he calmly. She pulled out a kunai and said, "This is not an option, Oni. Sama would be happy with me if I let anything happen to you while you are in my care." "I can't," Gaara stated with equal composure. "Please go, Gaara," he said grudgingly, "because if something happened to you, I wouldn't be able to live with myself." Conan remarked, "You have just made my job so much easier." "What are you talking about?" Naruto threw a kunai, but Conan exploded into thousands of pieces of paper, and they launched themselves at Naruto. "He isn't my target, you are," she said. After Gaara returned to the village and informed Hotaru, the first person he had located, of what had happened, she hurried to Naruto's aid and gave Gaara the order to stay in the village. However, the kunai and blood left behind were the only indication that anyone had been there when she arrived. "Naruto," muttered Hotaru. When Hotaru returned to the village with a hit 8.8, she fought back tears as Takumi and a few other village shinobi greeted her. One of them inquired, "Where is Naruto?" Softly, "I don't know," she said. When Aya said, "We will have to inform Kausukage Sama when he wakes up," they all looked at each other, wondering who would have the courage to tell the Kage that his sister, the only member of his family, had disappeared and was most likely dead or nearby. "Any volunteers?" she asked after a brief pause. "I will," Hotaru said following yet another pause. Naruto's final words, "I wouldn't be able to live with myself anything happened to you," echoed in his mind as he walked away. "No, it is because of me that she is gone, so I will tell him," Gaara said calmly. "Just let me know when he is awake." When Naruto opened his eyes the following morning, he saw 3 girls in his room, all soundly asleep in their chairs. Kakashi was standing at his door, and Naruto calmly asked, "What are you all doing in here?" "We didn't think it wise to leave you unguarded while you were down," Kakashi stated with a grin on his face. "That is why I was here. They haven't left your side the whole time you were here." He looked around the room and asked, "Where is Naruto?" But she was not there. After saying, "There is someone who would like to speak to you, I will go get them," Kakashi hurried out of the room. Gaara showed up a few minutes after he left. Gaara said, "Naruto, I regret to inform you that Naruto has gone missing," while maintaining eye contact with his mute Kage. Naruto asked calmly, "What do you mean missing?" without turning to face Gaara. The 3 girls woke up searching for the cause of the commotion when they noticed that Naruto's eye was no longer blue but rather stealthy and angry. "We encountered an Akatsuki member and she went missing after that," they said. The room was filled with a terrible chakra. Shinobi soon dashed into the room to investigate. He grabbed his weapons, hat, and Kausukage robes as he got out of bed. "You should still be in bed," Fu begged. He stated in a stern, unforgiving tone, "I have rested long enough. There is work to be done. If this is how they want to play, then let the games begin." When he entered his office, he called forth a 3-tailed fox and a 4-tailed fox. He looked down at his summons and told them it was time to pay back their debts, but no one dared to stop him or stand in his way. He turned to see Hotaru standing there as the 2 foxes disappeared. "Is there something you need?" he asked, opening a wardrobe and taking out his new Kage robes and battle armor. She tried to be brave but found it difficult because of the power emanating from Naruto. We are all worried about her, but you can't just go and risk everything for her. There is much more at stake here, she said. She would want you to throw everything away for her. Naruto accepted a scroll that one of the two foxes had returned to his mouth. She turned to leave after realizing that this was a lost battle, saying she knew the risk when she told Gaara to run, when she faced them alone. The tone of Naruto's voice has softened considerably. She should have been alone. I broke my promise. I told her I would always be there to protect her, he said. Hotaru turned and said, that's a silly promise because you won't always be there, but he had already left. She had to act quickly because she knew that Naruto had ordered them to protect the Jinchuriki and that no one in Arashigakure would dare defy his orders. Then she thought of the Konoha shinobi. Even though she couldn't do anything, they could. Kakashi. Senpai, I need your help, she said as she ran to find Kakashi and saw him conversing with Shikamaru. She grabbed onto his arm and turned to face Kakashi. Shikamaru questioned, then why are you hanging on my arm? She said menacingly, because I want to. Do you have a problem with that? He hoped that, no, was the correct response. She turned back to Kakashi and said, okay then, but she heard him mutter something unsettling and gave him a side elbow. Kakashi inquired, what is it that you need? It is about Naruto. Sama, she replied quickly, he has lost it and he is going out looking for Naruto. Alone? Kakashi inquired, growing anxious. I don't know, he summoned two foxes and said something about, it was time to pay a debt. I don't know who he could be asking for help, she replied, and I can't leave. I have a mission here and I don't dare disobey a direct order from Naruto. Sama, nor will anyone else here. Kakashi inquired, what is it that you want? Then it hit her. I don't know what to do, she begged, do anything, we can lose Naruto. Sama, if he's lost then. What is it? Inquired Shikamaru. Hotaru said in numb disbelief. Gaara got away with it so easily and they didn't just kill Naruto because he wasn't the target of that second attack. Shikamaru said, okay, what are you talking about? When a new voice said, you are aware Naruto is the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, they noticed a standing there. Yugito. Sama, said Hotaru uneasily. Hi, replied Kakashi. Both Hotaru and Shikamaru simultaneously exclaimed, wait, what? She turned to Hotaru and said, that is the reason Naruto is no longer a Konoha shinobi. Yugito responded, there is no reason to worry, Raikage already knows of the situation and he has called a Kage Summit. A Kage Summit, that means he has called together the cages of the 5 great nations. Why would he do that? Said Shikamaru. Aren't you a smart one? The reason he has called one is because of war. It has started whether we like it or not and the only thing to do is meet it head on, she said. But what does he want to get accomplished by call together the cages? Replied Shikamaru. We don't know the power that they possess and besides this is not the responsibility of one nation but all of them. Naruto. Sama has done more than his share time again and again to keep the Akatsuki from reaching their goals, but there is only so much one nation can do. And despite his great power, this is a small village without the manpower of any of the 5 great nations, but he has the continued support of Kumagakure. As Kakashi put it, I see, has word been sent to the Hokage yet? No, I was hoping that you would speak to her on our behalf, she replied. Hi, said Kakashi. In another scene, Naruto calmly said, you came to me in your time of need and now I come to collect on the debt, as he faced a man wearing a mask. The man inquired, what is the cost of your services? Tell me where Naruto is, Naruto said, giving the man in front of him a stern look. What makes you think that I know? Naruto's statement, because I know Itachi, your little gang is the one that took her, ensured that the man in the mask knew that he was no secret. The man inactivated his Sharingan and lowered his hood. Very good, Naruto. Sama, but knowing who I am, it was rather risky for you to come to me. How do you know that I won't try to bring you in? Replied Itachi. Because you are a man of his word, you owe me and the reason you came was to settle your debt, that is how I know, said Naruto, and besides you are scared of what I know. And what is that? Inquired Itachi. Everything, and it would be a shame if Sareri-chan learned the truth about the Uchiha massacre, don't you agree? If I tell you where she will be, will that clear me of my debt to you? Itachi inquired. Hi. Itachi replied, she will be at the abandoned Uchiha stronghold in 3 months. Madara does seem to have the flair for the dramatic, Naruto said, causing Itachi to smirk at his name. I told you that I know everything, why do you think I kill Orochimaru? I want to learn all of his secrets, and by that look on your face he knew more than you thought he did, which is all the better for me. Itachi put the hood back over his head and disappeared without saying anything more. I think I struck a nerve, Naruto told himself. A blonde girl was severely beaten, strapped to a chair, with her chin resting on her chest, while a man wearing an orange mask stood in the room. The man said, "Wakey, wakey," in a sing-song voice. Glaring at the man in front of her, she opened her eyes. "What are you supposed to be the entertainment?" she stated. "No, Toby is to keep an eye on you, and if Toby does good, Senpai says Toby becomes a fully fledged Akatsuki," he said arrogantly. "Toby, how many times have you been dropped on your head?" When he said, "Didera," Senpai used to ask Toby that all the time, he laughed. As she climbed off the ropes, she said, "Well, Toby, I would love to stay and chat, but I think I have to kill you now." He struck himself in the head and said, Toby knew he forgot something, as her kick went straight through him. "What the hell?" she exclaimed, observing that her kick had no effect on him. Toby begged in a humorous manner, "Please sit down so Toby doesn't have to hurt you."
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.